Chapter 1924. 20,000 Years. The corners of his mouth twitched. Learning array formations and storing some up was nothing. Although he had less than 5,000 arrays in reserve, it wouldn't take long for him to learn 100,000. In any case, he had time acceleration. However, it took 20,000 years to create a Qianji godly ghost plate. Who the hell could wait for 20,000 years? Han Fei shook his head quickly. Forget it. 20,000 years is too long. I'll seize every minute. Han Xian said, Young man, don't be so impatient. After all, Uncle didn't split open the sky. Otherwise, wouldn't have taken so long. Will you think about it? You're fully capable of inheriting my legacy. Han Xian tried to persuade him, but Han Fei refused. What if he really spent 20,000 years? I have already split open the heavens. Just when Han Fei was about to refuse, he suddenly thought of something. Actually, it seemed not impossible. Han Xian might have taken a long time to create the Thousand Trickeries Godly Ghost Disc. However, the Thousand Trickeries Godly Ghost Board was simply too powerful. With this item in hand, the grade of the weapon in his hand immediately soared. It could strengthen one's attack, defense, and speed. Anything that could be used by a spell formation could be used by the Thousand Trickeries God Ghost Disc. To put it bluntly, this thing was a great killing weapon. Having one was like having an army of millions. If a venerable realm expert was able to fully display the power of the Thousand Trickeries Godly Ghost Board, then the power inside the cage would probably be enough to sweep through everything by himself. However, at the end of the day, it was just an auxiliary weapon, an item that could be fused with formations. Since it was a weapon that he couldn't make, what about the Demon Purification Pot? Now, the fifth vine of the Demon Purification Pot had just returned. Would it be possible to forge even stronger weapons? Han Fei couldn't help but suspect that no matter how good he was at refining, it was impossible for him to surpass the Demon Purification Pot in a short time. What if the Thousand Trickeries Godly Ghost Board could be refined? Wouldn't he be making a huge profit? Han Fei immediately said, Uncle Xian, I don't think we should refine the Thousand Trickeries disc for 20,000 years. Besides, I'm still young. It's better if I refine this Thousand Trickeries Godly Ghost disc myself. This way, we can also see through the mysteries within, don't you think so? Han Xian immediately smiled and said, You refine it yourself? It was not impossible. Although it might take a little longer, you are still young after all. Nephew, how old are you now? Let's see if you can catch up in this life. Tens of thousands of years? Han Fei couldn't help but frown. He thought to himself, counting the time acceleration, I'm probably hundreds of years old. Han Fei didn't really want to discourage Han Xian, but he said, Well, Uncle Xian, I can't really remember his age either. Han Xian, just give me a rough idea. Han Fei sighed. I'm afraid I'm 500 years old. Han Xian sprayed a mouthful of tea on Han Fei's face. Han Xian cried out involuntarily. How old? Han Fei thought to himself. It seems that I have to tell others that I'm a little older in the future. Han Xian was bewildered, muttering. Opening the sea at 500 years old? Isn't such talent unique throughout the ages? Gurgle, immediately. Han Xian suddenly stood up and pulled Han Fei up. Let's go. Nephew, you are so talented. How can you not learn the 9 Palaces Strange technique and the 10,000 Arrays technique? Han Fei said, Uncle Xian, I think you'd better teach me the method of making the Thousand Trickeries Godly Ghost Plate. Han Xian sighed. If you want to refine the Thousand Trickeries Godly Ghost Plate, how can you not know the 9 Palaces 10,000 Arrays technique? With your talent, you should be able to learn it very quickly. Han Fei only had time to say to Luo Xiaobai via voice transmission, You lead everyone to cultivate first. I have to cultivate in seclusion for a while. Before Luo Xiaobai had time to respond, Han Fei had disappeared. 2 years later, Han Fei was trapped in a 9 Palaces Divine Pagoda. In this pagoda, Han Fei seemed to be in the Star Ocean Array technique. Every day, tens of thousands of arrays appeared. They were all what Han Fei needed to memorize and learn. In fact, in the first 3 months, Han Fei had memorized as many as 100,000 arrays. In the following time, Han Fei was actually studying the fusion, combination, and restriction of arrays. In Han Xian's words, if he wanted to refine the thousand trickeries godly ghost plate, he first had to know how to fuse multiple arrays. Only when one's heart was enlightened, as if all 10 fingers were connected to one's heart, could it be triggered in an instant and activate the unpredictable power of the Qianji godly ghost board. Han Fei had already fused arrays on a small scale. He could condense the arrays into a line and connect them with each other. However, the art of formation was too complicated. There were too many basic arrays. Large-scale arrays were particularly difficult to fuse. After being trapped for 2 years, Han Fei could at most fuse more than 50 arrays in an instant, which was far from Han Xian's ability to fuse 100 arrays in an instant, let alone 1,000 arrays. On this day, everyone in the 9 palaces heaven was in their daily cultivation and trials. Suddenly, above the divine pagoda, there was a sword piercing the sky, and many people stopped to look at it. Swish! At the top of the pagoda, a golden light flashed, and Han Fei appeared on the top of the pagoda. As soon as Han Fei came out, he saw Han Xian was tasting tea. Han Fei couldn't help saying, "Uncle Xian, why are you willing to let me out? If you don't let me out, I'll have to come out by myself." Han Xian said, "Han Fei, don't be impatient when cultivating this Tao. The fusion of 100 arrays is the foundation of running the 1,000 trickeries godly ghost plate. However, I gave you the opportunity to come out today because there are some things I need to let you know." "Oh, what is it?" Han Xian handed a jade slip to Han Fei. The contents of a jade slip were like newspapers. It recorded the events in the chaotic vast sea within a month. Han Fei scanned with his perception, and soon one thing caught his attention. The intelligence said that the savage abyss was shaking. Wei Luoqian went there in person but couldn't enter, so he returned. After seeing this message, Han Fei's heart sank. Only a few years have passed. It hasn't even been 8 years, and the savage abyss is already in turmoil. Could it last until the opening of the imperial palace? Han Fei said solemnly, "Uncle Xian, it's not that I don't want to, but I really don't have much time. The fusion of 100 arrays is only a matter of time for me. But my time can't be completely wasted here." Han Xian sighed slightly. "Fine. It's not too difficult to learn the 9 palaces' 10,000 arrays when you already have the foundation of arrays. The difficult part is to fuse the arrays and construct them at will. It's not realistic to keep you in the 9 palaces heaven. It's time for you to leave. However, remember what I said. Even if the Grand Pure One and the Wuji heaven divide the Yin-Yang heaven and the Waterwood heaven, so what? As long as you grow up, there will be great things to do. Don't be arrogant. That won't be worth the loss." Han Fei nodded slightly. "Thank you for your teachings, Uncle Xian." Han Fei scanned the arrays with his perception. "All members of the Avenger, return to your positions." Han Fei's voice sounded in everyone's ears. Hearing Han Fei's voice again after 2 years, the people who were in the trial knew that time was up. Originally, Han Fei said he would only stay in the 9 palaces heaven for a year. How much they could get here depended on themselves. However, in fact, this time was extended to about 2.5 years. But even so, everyone still felt that time was not enough. Even though they had been taking trials day and night, Xia Xiaochan was the only one who had passed all the 42 trials. The one who had passed the most trials was not the Half-Lords, but Luo Xiaobai. In the early stage, Luo Xiaobai didn't go to the trial at all, but followed Xia Xiaochan to record and study them one by one. Now, she had completed 31 trials of the 9 palaces and ranked second on the Avenger, 2 more than Song Kaiyuan. Swish, 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 when figures appeared under the tower. Han Fei's perception scanned and found that half of them had made a breakthrough. Even Lu Rinquang and Luo Xiaobai had entered the peak-level Venerable Realm. However, thinking about it, it was only because they were cultivating the stainless profound body that they were able to slow down in the first place. With enough resources, it was only natural for them to enter the peak-level Venerable Realm. Even if some people didn't make a breakthrough, their fundamental strength had definitely been greatly improved. Han Fei said, "It's been more than 2 years. I've given you enough time. I can see that in the past 2 years, your growth has been very significant. But this is far from enough." Lu Rinquang muttered, "The main reason is that all the resources have been consumed. Otherwise, they would have been raised to another level." Han Fei smiled slightly. "Today, we will leave the Nine Palace Heaven. In the chaotic sea, countless enemies are waiting for us. So, we can't stay here for long. Everyone, enter my origin sea." The people brought by Han Fei were all extremely powerful in terms of comprehension and strength. It could be said that they were the top group of people in the Waterwood Heaven, the Yin-Yang Heaven, and the Cage Heaven. If they hadn't completed the Nine Palaces trial in more than 2 years, they probably wouldn't have finished it in a short time. After a moment, when everyone entered the origin sea, they saw Yin-Er and Yin-Er were still outside. Yin-Er was pulling Yin-Er and said, "We came together, so let's go together. If you stay here, no one will play with me." Yin-Er smiled slightly. "Yin-Er, I know you are very talented. As long as you are willing, I'm afraid it will only take you a few years to enter the Half-King realm. I won't even be surprised if you transcend the tribulation and reach the sea expansion realm. But I'm different. Since I know I can't transcend the tribulation and reach the sea expansion realm, I won't be of much help. My brother is outside, and I have to stay inside." Before Yin-Er could persuade him, Yin-Er said, "Brother, aren't you going to leave your incarnation?" Han Fei smiled bitterly and murmured, "If I leave my incarnation, I will naturally become the young master of the Nine Palace Heaven. At that time, I will really have time to study the array and experience the trial. If I have time in the future, I will come back with my real body. It's a great opportunity to synchronize the comprehension of both sides." Han Fei asked, "Yin-Er, are you really going to stay?" Yin-Er nodded. "Brother, what senior sister Xiaobai and Uncle Xian said is correct. In any case, the Yin-Yang Heaven and the Waterwood Heaven are not the key, but you. I will stay in your incarnation. At the same time, I also need another way to grow." Han Fei looked at Han Xian. Han Xian smiled slightly. "Don't look at me. I'm a grown-up girl. I have my own ideas." Han Fei sighed slightly. "That's fine. Yin-Er, enter my origin sea." At this moment, Yin-Er had also grown up and become a slim and graceful girl. She couldn't help but pout. Han Fei said, "Don't act cute. Hurry up." Humph! After Yin-Er chatted with Yin-Er for a while, she had no choice but to enter the origin sea. At this moment, Han Xian said, "Han Fei, don't be impulsive when you go out this time. Uncle, I have one more thing to tell you. I have news from the Silver Moon Heaven." Half a day later, on the high tower of the Nine Palace Heaven, Han Xian and Han Fei's incarnation were having a drink. Han Fei handed over a jade slip. "Uncle Xian, I wonder if this can help you reach the sky expansion realm." Huh? Han Xian couldn't help but be puzzled, but when he scanned it with his perception, the corners of his mouth suddenly cracked and he laughed. "Ha ha! Stinking brat, you're actually hiding this divine art from your uncle, and you're only telling me about it now. I really want to beat you up." In the chaotic azure sea, when Han Fei returned to this place again, he didn't immediately let everyone out of the origin sea. The Nine Palace Heaven was the greatest opportunity Han Fei had encountered in the chaotic azure sea apart from the martial Emperor City. But considering that it was his family's palace, and he met his uncle, this kind of opportunity was purely luck. After leaving the Nine Palace Heaven, Han Fei's body flashed with a golden light, and he appeared hundreds of thousands of kilometers away. He had stayed in the inner sea for a long time. Now that the savage abyss was in turmoil, it was time for him to go to the outer sea. In fact, not only the crew of the Avenger had consumed a lot of resources in the past 2 years, but even Han Fei himself had consumed an astronomical figure. Although he had raided the Medicine King Sky's treasury and obtained countless treasures and resources, he had used a third of the resources to strengthen his origin sea, almost turning it into an immortal paradise. Another one-third of the resources were around the demon purification pod, only for the fifth vine to devour energy, so that the second divine elixir would mature. Although this batch of resources was not consumed quickly, Han Fei would not use them, because they were the source of power for his second divine elixir. The remaining one-third of the resources were used to expand the Origin Sea. His Origin Sea was already very exquisite, with mountains, lakes, seas, the essence of the earth veins, spirit stone mines, and spiritual veins. But no matter how exquisite it was only 12,000 kilometers in diameter, which was too small. Since talking with Han Xian last time, and knowing that the size of the Origin Sea was indeed one of the important sources of strength in the Pioneer Sea state, Han Fei did not stop and had been expanding the Origin Sea in the past 2 years. Now, under the consumption of a huge amount of resources, the size of the Origin Sea had reached 30,000 kilometers, but the resources in Han Fei's hands were almost used up. It was not that the resources he plundered from the Medicine King Heaven were not enough, nor that the resources he plundered were not plentiful enough, but that the resources were used up too quickly. Swish, swish above the boundless sea. If someone could see it, they would find that every 200,000 kilometers or so, there would be a flash of golden light. The speed was so fast that they could travel millions of kilometers in a moment, which was a miracle. One day later, near the barbaric abyss, on a big ship of the Gale pirates, Han Fei stood alone. In front of Han Fei, an advanced venerable said in horror, "My lord, what I said is true. The barbaric abyss is indeed trembling, but it's far from the level of entry. It is said that Bei Luochun broke in personally, but he couldn't pass through the barrier. In the end, he was forced to walk out and returned in anger." Han Fei said leisurely, "Tell me something I don't know. For example, do you know where your captain is?" The venerable was horrified. Was Han Fei going to kill his boss? However, at the moment of life and death, who would be willing to die just to hide their whereabouts? He said, "My lord, the barbaric abyss has been turbulent recently. Now that everyone knows that there may be a problem here, everyone who pays attention to this place knows that it's dangerous. It is said that none of the top 10 pirate groups came in person this time. All they did was send a fleet of ships to come here, and the number of venerables is limited." Through the vibration of this person's soul, Han Fei knew that this person was not lying. However, to be honest, the strength that he had shown was already not comparable to that of ordinary pirate group leaders. Although the pirate group leaders were also kings, they were not worth mentioning compared to super powerhouses like Bei Luochun of the Wuji Heaven. Therefore, except for those who were clear that they would definitely oppose Han Fei, there were not many people who really paid attention to this place this time. Of course, Han Fei would not go to the central area of the barbaric abyss in person, because there was no need. Even if he went, he would not be able to return. If he encountered an ambush, the strength of the person who came must be extraordinary. If there was a heaven-opening realm powerhouse, it would not be easy to deal with. Sure enough, Han Fei soon found that there was still a big ship of the Wuji Heaven. There were more than 30 half-king realm powerhouses on the ship. Bait. At this time, there were still people from the Wuji Heaven. They were probably bait, waiting for him to kill them so that he could catch a turtle in a jar. However, Han Fei suddenly grinned. With his temper, even if he knew it was a trap, he might still fall for it. And now, he had learned the golden light movement technique. Even if there was a heaven-opening realm powerhouse ambushing him, so what? Could a heaven-opening realm powerhouse outrun the golden light movement technique? On the big ship of the Wuji Heaven, a young man stood at the bow. Behind him, he said, "Captain, we have been waiting here for almost half a month. Will Han Fei really come?" The young man shook his head. "I'm not sure. This person is arrogant. It's hard to say whether he will come or not. I hope he will come. If he succeeds, he will have a bright future." Someone said, "Captain, in my opinion, the Avenger probably doesn't dare to come. Otherwise, why hasn't he shown up in the barbaric abyss?" The young man sighed slightly. "Whether he comes or not, we can't slack off anyway. Maybe the Patriarch has other arrangements." Suddenly, this person felt that the spiritual energy and energy within 1,000 kilometers around him almost disappeared in an instant. He quickly came back to his senses and saw a void-breaking sword light rushing over. The terrifying sword shadow swept across half of the sea and all kinds of power of the great path were hidden in it. The young man hurriedly crushed a jade slip. "Patriarch, Patriarch! He's here! He's here!" Then the young man shouted, "Quick! Activate the ship formation!" After that, the young man threw out another jade slip without hesitation. This jade slip shattered in the void and turned into a huge figure. The figure had white hair. The moment it appeared, it narrowed its eyes and pointed. Wuji, Black Moon Wheel. Han Fei's pupils constricted. A blow from a heaven-opening realm powerhouse. Humph! In the void, Han Fei's figure emerged, and he shouted, "Wuji, old dog, even if you come with your real body, you can't protect all the people on this ship." Swish! Han Fei didn't even look at the Tao Convergence sword and Bei Luoqin's Black Moon. With a swish, his figure disappeared, and then with a flash of golden light, he appeared on the big ship of the Wuji Heaven. The moment he landed on the ship, more than 30 clones of Han Fei landed. Seeing this scene, the young half-king couldn't help but be terrified. How could this person be so fierce? How dare he show off on the ship in front of the Patriarch? As Han Fei slashed out, the whole ship was annihilated in an instant, and all the venerables on the ship exploded and died. No one survived. Rumble, when Han Fei killed everyone on this ship, a terrifying explosion set off boundless huge waves. At this time, Bei Luoqin's phantom turned around and tried to stop Han Fei. Han Fei scooped up the Sun Moon shellfish from these people, merged with his clone, and slapped Bei Luoqin with a backhand. However, after Han Fei's slap came into contact with Bei Luoqin's attack, he actually managed to resist it for a moment. This made Han Fei smile involuntarily. It seemed that Bei Luoqin was not so invincible. As a heaven-opening realm powerhouse, even if it was just a clone, the blow that contained the Tao was not something that Han Fei could resist with one blow. But in fact, Han Fei could resist it a little with his strength alone, which meant that Bei Luoqin was not invincible. He just had the advantage of being in a higher realm. Suddenly, Han Fei pinched his fingers subconsciously. He knew that someone was coming. At this time, Bei Luoqin's projection was also about to dissipate. It was already very rare for a projection to launch 2 attacks, which broke his Tao Convergence sword, and to resist Han Fei's blow head-on, which was already extremely powerful. At this moment, Han Fei looked sideways and saw a figure appear in the void more than 800,000 kilometers away and disappear in a flash. The moment their eyes met, Han Fei sneered in the void. "Bei Luoqin, old be asterisk starred. I'm here to tell you what I want to say. If you dare to touch my yin-yang heaven, I'll slaughter your Wuji heaven. If you dare to try, let's have a try." As soon as he said that, Han Fei's body glowed with golden light, and with a leap, he appeared hundreds of thousands of kilometers away. After a while, he saw a figure breaking through the void. When this person broke through the void, blue light intertwined and the void changed, and his body also stabilized a few times. This should be what the old turtle said. In this world, there is a limit to the limit of speed. This old man came too fast. Bei Luoqin looked around, but he didn't see Han Fei at first. He had searched the surrounding 300,000 kilometers, but Han Fei was not there. Listening to Han Fei's words, Bei Luoqin narrowed his eyes and didn't speak for a long time. Chapter 1925. Although the barbaric abyss was turbulent, nothing happened, but Han Fei still came to the martial emperor's city as soon as possible. With Han Fei's current speed, he could cross the outer domain and the inner domain in a day if he wanted to. In the martial emperor's city, Han Fei went straight to the intelligence center, not caring if he was seen. He was there to listen to the intelligence. In the inner room of the intelligence center, Han Fei said, "I want to know about the anomaly in the barbaric abyss this time." Yin Ming said with a smile, "No problem. 3 million ultra-quality spiritual stones." Han Fei threw out a 5th-grade Tao pattern pill and asked, "Is that okay?" Yin Ming nodded. "Yes." A fish skin map fell in front of Han Fei. Han Fei took a look at it and was relieved. Everything was fine. It mentioned that Bei Luoqin went to the barbaric abyss in person and tried to descend as a projection, but after half a month he didn't find anything. In fury, Bei Luochun attacked the abyss several times and was swallowed by the Inyang giant millstone. Seeing that his attacks didn't work, he sat outside the barbaric abyss. Han Fei knew what was going on when he saw the news. Bei Luochun was too naive to think that he could descend as a projection. Chen Huangdian had done that too, but he was only an explorer who could really descend to that place. Han Fei didn't know if Bei Luochun was stronger than Chen Huangdian, but it was impossible to shake the Inyang heaven and the Waterwood heaven with a clone. No matter how weak the Inyang heaven and the Waterwood heaven were, they had more than one king. How could they be afraid of a mere projection? Han Fei didn't care about that at all. Han Fei smiled after reading the intelligence. Does the Martial Emperor City have any idea about when the Inyang heaven will appear? If you do, how much? Yin Meng said, this can't be counted as intelligence, and the Martial Emperor City can't see through the barbaric abyss either. Han Fei nodded. That was fine. Once he left the barbaric abyss, he would know nothing about it. He had no idea what the cracks in the cage were. He didn't even dare to go in again. Otherwise, the structure of the cage would be affected and the cage would be broken sooner, which would harm the Inyang heaven and the Waterwood heaven. After leaving the intelligence center, Han Fei came to the tower. Han Fei said, "Is Senior King Wu here?" Buzz, an illusory figure, appeared. It was King Wu. His true body had yet to appear, and even Han Fei could not see the king of Martial Emperor City at any time. It was already a great honor for Han Fei to send out a phantom. King Wu's voice was unhurried. "Are you ready to request a second thing from Martial Emperor City?" Han Fei said straightforwardly, "I want to know one thing. Can Martial Emperor City protect Xia Xiaochan?" Xia Xiaochan had been in the half-monarch realm for a long time. She had stayed in the Source Sea with him for more than 300 years, cultivating and visualizing day and night. Whether it was her physique, soul, or combat power, she had reached the limit of the half-monarch realm. The reason why Xia Xiaochan could break through the 42 levels of the 9-palace heaven so easily was that she had reached the limit of this realm. Now, Xia Xiaochan was in the same situation as Han Fei, and the energy in her body was a little too much. Xia Xiaochan had told Han Fei about this a long time ago, and she was ready. But Han Fei felt a little uneasy, not because of the lack of resources, but because he felt that it might not be easy to pass the tribulation here. So he came to ask the Martial King. Originally, Martial Emperor City owed him 3 things. Now that one had been completed, there were only 2 left. Normal people would think that Martial Emperor City would gladly accept it. After all, it was a breakthrough in the territory of Martial Emperor City. Who would dare to make trouble? However, the Martial King pondered for a moment and said, "No." Han Fei couldn't help but be surprised. "Why?" The Martial King said lightly, "Specifically, when you return to Martial Emperor City, Chen Huangdian said something to me. He said that one day you will come back to me and protect Princess Mingzhu. However, the first 8 tribulations are easy to pass, but the 9th is difficult. This tribulation is the mental demon tribulation. There are 2 parts to this tribulation. One is to strangle Godbane Heaven, and the other is to revive her mother. Godbane Heaven is secondary. It can be temporarily suppressed and planned for another day. However, the revival of her mother is closely related to Princess Mingzhu, so she has to do it." Han Fei couldn't help but frown. "You mean she must return to the mermaid royal family to pass the tribulation?" The Martial King said lightly, "Yes." Han Fei couldn't help but be silent. If this was said by someone else, he would definitely not believe it. But since it was said by the Martial King, there was no reason not to believe it. The Martial King added, "Also, the mermaid royal family has already had a failed union, which was the failed union between Princess Mingzhu's mother and the one behind the Godbane Heaven. This time, Princess Mingzhu's union with you almost pushed her to the position of a traitor. Even if she wants to go back, she may not be able to now. After all, Chen Huangdian is not the only one who has the final say in the mermaid royal family." Han Fei couldn't help but ponder. According to this, wouldn't it be impossible for Xia Xiaochan to pass the tribulation? "Wait," Han Fei suddenly said. What does Chun Huangdi mean by this? The martial king said, I don't know what it means. You need to ask him yourself. If you make this the second thing you ask the martial emperor city to do, it is almost the same as asking the martial emperor city to slaughter the mermaid royal family. So this is absolutely impossible. Han Fei sighed slightly. Thank you for telling me, Senior. Han Fei didn't expect this matter to be so complicated. Half a day later, in a non-route zone, Han Fei sat cross-legged on the Avenger. Luo Xiaobai, Xia Xiaochan, Zhang Xuanyu, and Lu Renquang were all called out by Han Fei. Lu Renquang said with a smile, Is this a special treatment? Why don't you call senior brother Da Shuai and the others out too? Zhang Xuanyu seemed to find something wrong, not to mention Luo Xiaobai. Now that Han Fei called them out alone, they couldn't be fine. Xia Xiaochan couldn't help but ask, Have you been to the martial emperor's city? Han Fei nodded slightly. Yes. Xia Xiaochan immediately frowned. Why? Can I? Luo Xiaobai glanced at Xia Xiaochan and then looked at Han Fei. What's the matter? Even Lu Renquang found something wrong. He stopped barbecuing and looked at Han Fei. Han Fei said, The martial king doesn't agree to protect her during the tribulation. Girl, do you know the relationship between you and your mother? Xia Xiaochan's face couldn't help but darken when she heard this. Originally, she wanted to use Han Fei's opportunity to go to the martial emperor's city because her tribulation would be accompanied by the flapping of the wings of the heavenly cicada. At that time, not only the royal family of the mermaids would know, but so would the people of the gods in Vestiture Heaven. There would definitely be many people who want to sabotage the heavenly tribulation. It probably wouldn't work if she didn't avoid it. But now, the martial king flatly refused, which was a big problem. Last time, when Han Fei wanted to return to the Yin-Yang Heaven, so many experts were attracted and the martial emperor's city could handle it. This time, it was just her tribulation, but the martial emperor's city couldn't handle it. It was obvious that this matter was more serious than she thought. Tribulation? Luo Xiaobai was surprised. Xiaochan, are you going to have a tribulation? Zhang Xuanyu's face grew solemn. So soon? Lu Renquang asked. Why doesn't the martial emperor's city protect you? Xia Xiaochan said, I just have a feeling that the reason why Chun Huangdian wants me to stay is because of my mother. But she's in a deep sleep, and I don't know when she will wake up. If I can wake her up, Chun Huangdian should tell me. But he never told me anything before. Han Fei said, This time, I called you out because I have an immature and bold idea. I was thinking, should we discuss it? Lu Renquang immediately said, Even you think it's immature. I'm afraid it's dangerous, isn't it? Otherwise, you would have done a long time ago. Everybody nodded. After so many years, who didn't know each other? If he could solve it himself, he would have done a long time ago. Why would he bring it up for discussion? Luo Xiaobai said, Tell me about it first. Han Fei hesitated for a moment and said, Uncle Xian told me about the situation in the chaotic Azure Sea, and Xiaobai, you've analyzed it too. I also know that our peak combat power is still too weak. Even if we manage to gather a few heaven-opening state experts, it will directly lead to civil strife in the human race, which will give others an opportunity to take advantage of. So, I'm wondering if the royal family of the mermaids can cooperate with us. When Han Fei said the last sentence, Xia Xiaochan looked at Han Fei in shock. Zhang Xuanyu and Lu Renquang looked at each other and widened their eyes. Only Luo Xiaobai was slightly stunned, and then she calmed herself down and said, If we can cooperate, tell me your reason first. Han Fei looked at Xia Xiaochan. Girl, how many heaven-opening state experts are there in the royal family of the mermaids? Xia Xiaochan thought for a moment. As far as I know, there's only one person on the surface. If Chun Huangdian is really a heaven-opening state expert, as I guessed, then there are two known people. Han Fei pondered for a moment and said, There are two known people. Even if there are no hidden heaven-opening state experts, two heaven-opening state experts are already an extremely terrifying force. Our joint opponent, the Sword God of the Sword God Palace, is also a heaven-opening state expert. In this way, if we can cooperate with the royal family of the mermaids, we can at least protect the Yin-Yang Heaven and the Waterwood Heaven, Let the girl go through the tribulation and fight against the grand pure Wuji. Xia Xiaochan was surprised. Why do you have this idea? Luo Xiaobai thought for a moment and said, on the premise that the royal family of the mermaids agrees. Can you persuade the allies that have already been united? Han Fei shook his head. I don't know, Luo Xiaobai asked. Why do you think the royal family of the mermaids will cooperate with us? We don't have any heaven-opening state experts. After all, the sword god is an expert from the sword god palace. Although we are allies, will he support us? Zhang Xuanyu said, if you do this, will you be despised by the human race? Lu Renkuang nodded quickly. Why don't we think about it a little more? Didn't you say you were going to wait for the opening of that palace? What if our luck turns for the better? Han Fei had this idea because he was thinking about how to help Xia Xiaochan successfully pass the tribulation. Even King Wu had refused his request, so it would not be easy for Xia Xiaochan to pass the tribulation. Did Xia Xiaochan have to return to the royal family of the mermaids? Just as King Wu said, Xia Xiaochan had been taken away by him for so long. Even if she returned to the royal family of the mermaids, she might not be treated well. Instead of that, why not temporarily cooperate with the royal family of the mermaids? Except for the fact that he couldn't beat Chen Huangdian, everything seemed to be in his favor. The only problem was, why would the royal family of the mermaids cooperate with him? He had too few trump cards on his side. The only thing he could use was the navigational power of the multitude navigator. Han Fei said, no, if this method works, let's use it. I have to find a way to talk to Chen Huangdian. Xia Xiaochan was lost for words. Are you crazy? Won't you fight each other the moment you meet? Xia Xiaochan thought to herself, you already know that Chen Huangdian is in the heaven-opening state, but you still want to talk to him? Do you want to be killed by him again? Luo Xiaobai asked, have you thought it through? If we really cooperate, you will lose your reputation in the chaotic ocean, and you may even be regarded as a traitor. Han Fei chuckled. Whether or not I betray the clan will be decided in the end. But this is an opportunity. I have to try it. Otherwise, even if all the Avengers become half-kings, so what? Even if half of you enter the palace and become kings, so what? Our peak combat power is still not enough to compete with the Grand Pure Wuji. Lu Renkuang asked, do we have to compete with them? Han Fei narrowed his eyes and said, we are real enemies. I have a way to leave the chaotic ocean, and the Grand Pure Wuji will try to get it. Plus, the Grand Pure Wuji attacked the Yin-Yang Waterwood with the help of the immortal palaces, so we will really fight to the death. Zhang Xuanyu asked, since we can cooperate with the mermaid royal family, is there a chance to cooperate with the Grand Pure Wuji? Han Fei shook his head. We are sworn enemies. Even if we cooperate, do you really think we could be of one mind? If it weren't for the fact that Xia Xiaochan was the princess of the mermaid royal family, he wouldn't have cooperated with the mermaid royal family. Because the two sides had no basis for cooperation, the mermaid royal family was more powerful, and he couldn't get close to them. However, because of Xia Xiaochan's identity, and because of the unknown relationship between Xia Xiaochan and her mother that he heard from King Wu, the basis for cooperation was laid. Luo Xiaobai said, since you've thought it through, just do it. Anyway, the yin-yang heaven is trapped in the cage, and everything is because of the grand pure Wuji. Tens of thousands of years of hatred can't be settled so easily. Xia Xiaochan said, even if I want to talk to him, I can't go to the mermaid royal family. Chen Huangdian is temperamental. Han Fei said, am I that stupid? In the Martial Emperor's city, the top 10 pirate groups were all stationed year-round. In the Mermaid Pirates, Yu Fengxian was floating in the water, cultivating. Suddenly, someone said, Captain, not good. Han humph. What's the fuss? Don't you know I'm cultivating? What's the matter? Tell me. The man hurriedly swallowed and said, Captain, Han Fei, and Her Royal Highness are here. Huh? Yu Fengxian was taken aback. Why did Han Fei and Her Royal Highness come to see her? Immediately, Yu Fengxian's figure flashed and appeared outside the cultivation field. As she scanned with her perception, she found that it was none other than Her Royal Highness outside. Outside, Xia Xiaochan said to Han Fei, I spent some time with Annie Fengxian, and we're not bad friends. Don't try to intimidate me later. Han Fei rolled his eyes and said, Do I need to intimidate her? She's a king anyway. How can she be afraid of me? As they talked, a graceful figure wearing multiple layers of gauze appeared in front of them. Different from Xia Xiaochan's cute and fierce look, Yu Fengxian's posture and demeanor were very charming. Yu Fengxian slightly bowed to Xia Xiaochan. Greetings, Your Royal Highness. I didn't expect that Your Royal Highness has become a demi-king after only a few decades. Congratulations, Xia Xiaochan said. Auntie Fengxian, we're here to ask you to convey something. Yu Fengxian was slightly taken aback. Oh, Your Royal Highness, you don't have a very good reputation in the clan. Many Pioneer Sea Realm experts are quite dissatisfied with you. Even that one is very unhappy. Whatever you want me to convey, it had better be of some value. Otherwise, I'm afraid no one will listen to it. Han Fei said, It's simple. Just ask Chun Huangyan to come and have a talk. Nothing else. Yu Fengxian glanced at Han Fei and couldn't help but smile. Han Fei, Master Chun Huangyan, do you think you can meet him just because you say so? Han Fei chuckled. Trust me, this meeting is more important than you think, and it will even affect the entire royal family of mermaids. Yu Fengxian chuckled. Just because you say it will affect the entire royal family of mermaids? Why don't you convince me first so that I can think it over first? However, Han Fei slightly shook his head. You're not qualified. For a moment, Han Fei and Yu Fengxian clashed with each other's auras, and everybody around felt the pressure. Even Xia Xiaochan felt that her shoulders were heavy. When Xia Xiaochan raised her head, she saw that Han Fei and Yu Fengxian were staring at each other, as if they were going to pierce the void. After a minute or so, Yu Fengxian snorted and looked at Xia Xiaochan. For the sake of Your Royal Highness, I can convey the message. Just wait. 7 days passed. In a courtyard in the martial emperor's city, Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan were making dumplings. All of a sudden, a voice echoed leisurely. I heard that you have something to talk to me about. I hope my trip is worthwhile. Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan both raised their heads, only to see that Chun Huangyan was already standing on a roof. Han Fei wasn't bothered at all and kept making dumplings. He said lazily, I thought that you, Chun Huangyan, would be very cold. It seems that you've come after all. Chun Huangyan didn't respond to Han Fei, but looked at Xia Xiaochan. It seems that Your Royal Highness is about to undergo a tribulation, isn't it? That's somewhat out of my expectation, but it's not too surprising. Is Your Royal Highness going back to the mermaid's royal family? Xia Xiaochan was gloomy and didn't say anything, but Han Fei chuckled. Girl, you can go back, but not now, and not in this way. Chun Huangyan smiled wickedly. I thought you were begging me. Han Fei rolled his eyes. Begging you? I'll beat you up sooner or later. Begging you? Chun Huangyan slightly shrugged. If you're not begging me to bring Your Royal Highness back, why did you come to me? Put on, Han Fei waved his hand, and a pile of dumplings fell into the pot. Then, Han Fei extended his hand, and a nautical globe with 5 rings that were spinning slightly appeared in his hand. He said, Do you recognize this thing? Chun Huangyan looked at the nautical globe. He had guesses, but he wasn't sure. He said indifferently, Continue. Han Fei said, If my guess is correct, you know why the yin-yang heaven entered the savage abyss. Since he had some understanding, then he might know what I was holding in my hand. I'm not afraid to tell you that this is the way to leave the chaotic ocean. If the Grand Pure Wuji, the mermaid's royal family, the 100 demons, and the undersea humans know that I have this treasure, they will certainly try their best to rob me. Chun Huangyan chuckled. Do you think I'll believe you? Han Fei suggested. How about we make a bet? Chun Huangyan nodded. Go ahead. Han Fei said, The 36 divine palaces of the human race, the 13 heavens inside and outside the chaotic ocean, and you know where the yin-yang, water, and wood are. There are 8 divine palaces left, namely Thoughtless, Silver Moon, Beast King, Lihin, Feather, Tin Color, White Cloud, and Ash. If I can find them, do you think it's possible with this thing in my hand? Chun Huangyan asked, What does it have to do with the mermaid's royal family? Han Fei said, Stop talking in riddles. Everybody wants this thing, and the mermaid's royal family is no exception. Chun Huangdian chuckled. If you trade this thing for it, I can let the princess pass the tribulation safely and send her back. The question is, are you willing to give it to me? Han Fei also smiled. Of course not. That's why I'm here to negotiate with you. Chun Huangdian grinned. Tell me about it. What if I'm tempted? Han Fei said, the mermaid's royal family will ally with the Yin-Yang heaven to resist the grand pure Wuji, and I can take you out of the chaotic ocean. After that, we'll go our separate ways. Of course, you'll have to take care of the girl's tribulation. Chun Huangdian looked at Han Fei as if he were an idiot. The Yin-Yang heaven can't stop the grand pure Wuji, so you ask the mermaid's royal family to stop it. That's a good plan, just for an empty promise and a nautical instrument that can't be proved to be useful? Han Fei sneered. Do you think the mermaid's royal family has anything to do with me if I become an emperor? Do you think that if the lass wasn't a member of the merfolk royal family, I wouldn't have attacked the merfolk royal family after I took control of the 36 mysterious heavens and wiped out all my enemies? If the girl wasn't born in the mermaid's royal family, do you think I couldn't find someone else? Han Fei poured a large bowl of cold water into the pot and said, I'm the one who asked you to come today. I don't expect you to agree. I can wait. Wait until I find the missing immortal palaces and wait for you to come find me. Chun Huangdian smiled in disdain. Even if you find all the lost palaces, what can you do? Can you even defeat an emperor? Han Fei chuckled. Chun Huangdian, is that all you've got? Han Fei's eyes turned cold. I can sacrifice the Yin-Yang heaven and the Waterwood heaven. After I become an emperor, I'll take revenge on them one by one. But if you give up this opportunity, you'll lose the chance to leave the chaotic ocean forever. Also, you and I will be mortal enemies. Chapter 1926. Chun Huangdian didn't take Han Fei's threat seriously. He said unhurriedly, Your Highness, do you know why I'm trying my best to raise you? To make you a princess at the cost of offending the kings? Xia Xiaochan was at a loss. She knew that Chun Huangdian had a purpose, but she didn't know what it was. However, in terms of training, she indeed had everything she wanted when she was a princess. She had abundant resources and perfect trials, which were resources that normal people couldn't get. Chun Huangdian smiled. Your mother is the only pure-blooded royal bloodline of the mermaid royal family. The rest of them are just mixed bloodlines. When the Age of Doom came, human beings, sea demons, and the mermaid royal family all had expeditions to the east. Those people bypassed the imperial palace and went to the outside world. The outside world wasn't any better than the chaos of the races in the vast ocean. The people there are just as vicious. Your mother fell in love with a human man just like you did. At that time, the concept of race wasn't so strong, and the mermaids didn't object to marrying other creatures. That man used the excuse of marrying your mother and giving the merman clan a place to live as an excuse to deceive your mother. Eventually, he pierced her heart, extracted her blood, and devoured her bloodline in order to become the supreme emperor. Then, Chun Huangdian looked at Han Fei. Are you sure that he's a good man? Xia Xiaochan was shocked by the simple description. It sounded simple, but there was a lot of grudges and heartache in it. Xia Xiaochan was surprised. Then why was my mother able to return to the mermaid royal family? Chun Huangdian chuckled. As I said, your mother is the only pure-blooded royal bloodline of the mermaid royal family. Maybe you don't know what pure-blooded is. Only those who came from the divine orthodoxy can bestow a pure bloodline to their race. Therefore, your mother is the son of a god. This time, not only was Xia Xiaochan shocked, but even Han Fei was dumbfounded. Another divine prince? Han Fei had seen how powerful the sons of gods were. The divine prince, for example, hadn't died completely since the end of the era, the bloodline divine tree, and now. Why? Like the divine prince said, he was a god after all. Although the son of a god was not strong enough, he could still be called a god. Therefore, the reason why Xia Xiaochan's mother was still alive probably had something to do with her identity as a divine prince. As he expected, Chun Huangdian said, the son of a god is a god. She guarded the only drop of blood in her heart. She had used a divine art and brought only a few people with her to escape from the outside world and return to this place. Originally, This drop of heart blood could have helped her to be reborn. However, Chun Huangdian looked at Xia Xiaochan. However, she discovered that she had a child. To ensure that the princess was born naturally, the drop of heart blood was absorbed by the princess, and she has been sleeping ever since. As he spoke, Chun Huangdian looked at Han Fei with a smile. Han Fei, do you really think I want to go to the outside world? No, I want blood. Your Highness has inherited the pure royal bloodline, so I must awaken your mother with the royal bloodline. You dare to make a deal with me without even knowing my basic demands? Xia Xiaochan's face turned pale. No wonder Chun Huangdian had never been nice to her, and no wonder Chun Huangdian could improve her with so many resources. As it turned out, that was the reason for everything. Han Fei, on the other hand, thought of why Chun Huangdian would tell Xia Xiaochan about it. Immediately, Han Fei's expression changed greatly. You deceived King Wu. You deliberately asked King Wu to reject me and lure me to you, so that you could tell the girl about it and trigger an inner demon crisis in her. Chun Huangdian smiled casually. You're not stupid. From this moment on, if your Highness wants to become a king, you must return to the royal family of mermaids. Otherwise, you won't be able to become a king. Han Fei couldn't have looked more gloomy. He hated such scheming guys the most. This guy had accomplished his purpose for decades with just one sentence. Chun Huangdian looked at Han Fei and said, I didn't tell her Highness before because I feared that it would affect her training. But then, you showed up and took her away. Fortunately, it didn't deviate from my plan. So, how are you going to convince me now? Right when Han Fei was thinking about how to answer him, Xia Xiaochan suddenly said, What if I return the blood to my mother? Chun Huangdian said unhurriedly, Your bloodline will no longer be a pure royal bloodline, but you won't die. You'll lose the potential and knowledge of the Son of God, but at least you'll still have the bloodline of the royal family of mermaids and the Yin family. You'll still be alive, won't you? Xia Xiaochan's expression changed. After a long silence, she suddenly raised her head. When the yin-yang heaven is born, ally with us and resist the grand pure Wuji. After that, I'll return to the royal family of mermaids with you and return the blood. Han Fei couldn't help but look at Xia Xiaochan. The bloodline of a god was no joke. Even his bloodline was far less promising than Xia Xiaochan's. Han Fei even regretted coming up with such a lousy idea. Why was he in such a hurry to find Chun Huangdian? Chun Huangdian chuckled. Although your Highness is a mermaid, why should I trust you? Xia Xiaochan said, I swear to the Tao. Chun Huangdian said unhurriedly, Let me hear it. Han Fei frowned. Xia Xiaochan, however, looked at Han Fei and said, If that's the case, I'll definitely return the blood. Xia Xiaochan cut her palm with her dagger and said, I, Xia Xiaochan, swear to the Tao. If the royal family of mermaids can protect the yin-yang heaven and the water wood heaven, I'll return the divine blood to the royal family of mermaids. If I break my oath, I'll never be able to establish a sea again, and my divine blood will return to its origin. Okay. Chun Huangdian nodded and looked at them proudly. It's not enough. Han Fei narrowed his eyes. Chun Huangdian, don't push your luck. Chun Huangdian said, It seems that we have a foundation for our cooperation. However, the mermaids have suffered such a great loss in the outside world. How can we let it go? So we have to go to the outside world. We have to use your navigator too. So, you have to swear that you won't fight the royal family of mermaids if you rule the 36 divine palaces one day. Secondly, you have to bring the merfolk race away from the chaotic Azure Sea. Oh, right, I'm not sure what Tao you're walking, so don't swear on the great Tao. Just swear on the heavenly Tao. If you go against it, your fate will collapse. Han Fei was lost for words. Is that even possible? Han Fei was confused. Chun Huangdian laughed. Luck belongs to the Tao of heaven. I don't have to worry about you swearing a crooked oath. Clones won't work either. Now let's see what you choose. Han Fei said gloomily. Chun Huangdian, you're really something? You're quite good at calculating. But you should know that the royal family of mermaids must protect the yin-yang heaven and the water wood heaven after I swear the oath. Chun Huangdian said, I can protect the yin-yang heaven and the water wood heaven, But the royal family of mermaids won't help either of you, nor will we help you in the internal conflict. I have nothing to do with the royal family of mermaids who wins or loses. Han Fei said, "Deal." Han Fei was also a bachelor. He couldn't blame anybody else for being tricked. He could only say that the guy was as cunning as old Han. The guy had been waiting for him to jump into the trap. Who could have expected that? Chun Huangdian laughed aloud. "If that's the case, you can do whatever you want, Your Highness. Remember to fulfill your promise in the future." However, when Chun Huangdian was about to turn around and leave, his expression slightly changed as he saw someone appear at the gate of the courtyard. Narrowing his eyes, Chun Huangdian asked, "King Wu." King Wu said casually, "Chun Huangdian, you have to pay the price for lying to me. You've made the martial emperor city lose its credibility for the first time. Although you've reached an agreement, you still have to pay the compensation." Chun Huangdian's voice was indifferent. "Master Martial King, is what I told you the truth?" King Wu said indifferently, "You made the martial emperor city break its promise." "That's a lie. Tell me, what compensation?" Chun Huangdian's eyes flickered. 100 million ultra-quality spiritual stones, 100,000 spiritual fruits, and a sea-quelling bizarre treasure. King Wu looked at Chun Huangdian coldly. "I'm not joking with you." Han Fei was secretly delighted. It was true that strength mattered most in this world. Chun Huangdian's face turned gloomy when King Wu said that he was not joking with him. Chun Huangdian had to be solemn. After a brief silence, he said, 1 billion ultra-quality spiritual stones, 1 million spiritual fruits, 10 mermaid pearls, and 2 sea-quelling bizarre treasures." King Wu slightly nodded and pointed at Han Fei. "Give them to him." Chun Huangdian, Han Fei. Han Fei was dumbfounded. Is this the so-called blessing and misfortune come hand in hand? He had just been tricked by Chun Huangdian, and he was rewarded with so many resources? Chun Huangdian said, 3 days. King Wu said, "Today, you can borrow from the martial emperor city if you don't have enough." Han Fei was instantly in high spirits. Chun Huangdian deserved it. Chun Huangdian was silent for a moment and looked at Han Fei indifferently. Okay. A moment later, Han Fei had complicated feelings when he held a bunch of sun moon shells. He bowed at King Wu. "Thank you, King Wu." King Wu slightly shook his head. "There's no need to thank me. The martial emperor city has always been trustworthy. Chun Huangdian deserves to be punished for deceiving us." As soon as he finished speaking, King Wu's figure flashed and vanished. First update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 1927. However, when he thought about how he had expanded his origin sea to a radius of 30,000 miles, he realized that he was in dire need of resources. By the time he opened up a few more spirit orchards, created a few earth veins and spirit veins, and created a spirit lake to connect the origin sea, he would probably have to use up half of it. If that was the case, then the strong really did eat resources. This was especially true for sea expansion experts. Their demand for resources was even more terrifying. Only the heavens knew where they got so many resources for sea-opening realm experts to cultivate. Han Fei thought about it and handed 5 or 6 sun moon shells to Xia Xiaochan. "These are for your tribulation." Xia Xiaochan was speechless. "Are you stupid? We've already agreed to return to the Merfolk royal clan to undergo the tribulation. So of course we'll have the Merfolk clan's resources. Are we supposed to use our own?" Han Fei thought of something. "That makes sense. Then I'll trick Chun Huangdian." Hearing this, Han Fei realized that it made sense. He reached out and grabbed, and the hexagon starfish was pulled out. At this moment, there were still 6 bubbles on the 6 tentacles of the hexagon starfish, and it was still sleeping. Smack! Bang, bang, bang. The circle of bubbles was broken, and the hexagon starfish's big eyes suddenly widened. "Who is it? What's wrong? What's up?" When the hexagon starfish saw Han Fei's black face, he couldn't help but exclaim, "I was too absorbed in my cultivation and accidentally fell asleep. Look at how my cultivation has soared from exalted realm pinnacle." Han Fei's lips shivered. "Master hexagon starfish, be more convincing next time." It's fine if you stole my spirit stone mountain, but I didn't take it to heart if you stole it secretly. You stuffed a sun-moon shell into it at one go, so what? That's my origin sea. How could I not know? Give it to me. The hexagon starfish rolled its big eyes quickly. Huh? Yeah. Why is there a sun-moon shell in my sect? Who put it in there? How strange. Seeing the hexagon starfish take out the sun-moon shell reluctantly, Han Fei thought for a moment, and with a thought, everyone on the Avenger appeared in the yard. Luo Xiaobai and Zhang Xuanyu surrounded him immediately. Luo Xiaobai asked, "Did you do that?" Zhang Xuanyu, "What's going on? Is that Chun Huangdian here?" Lu Renquang asked, "Where are we?" Han Fei sighed slightly and said, "I'll tell you about it later. I asked you to come out this time because you've exhausted your resources recently, so I'm giving you some wages." Pay! Lu Renquang and Zhang Xuanyu had long been used to these non-mainstream terms, and their eyes lit up. As soon as the others came out, they also paid attention to Han Fei. Nian even leaned over. "Brother, what's the salary?" Han Fei thought for a moment. The so-called salary is the bonus you get from working on the Avenger. In the past few years, your strength has grown too quickly, and the consumption of resources has also been rapid. Many of you are about to run out of resources. It was not a good idea to continue like this. There's no other way. How can this king watch you waste your energy on mere resources? Come, give everyone 2 million supreme-grade spirit stones to replenish their resources. This 2 million supreme spirit stones? How rich? Ishiyin glanced at him. "Senior brother, do you have too much money to spend?" Chu Jinan asked, "Senior brother, are you sure we don't want to leave some for the principal?" The insect king asked, "How many resources do we have to give out?" Wang Dashui nodded. "Junior brother, you know me." As for Xuening and Su Kan, they were all confused. Is the welfare of the Avengers so good? All the resources plundered belong to the crew. Not to mention, they cultivate every day with the resources they get from non-shipping routes. They can even be taken to a place like the Nine Palace Heaven for trials. Why do they have to pay? Han Fei said, line up. 2 million per person is just a small amount of money. In this Martial Emperor city, it's not even enough to take a stroll in a super resource store. Luo Xiaobai was surprised. Are we in the Martial Emperor's city? Although they often heard the name Martial Emperor's city, it was the first time that they had actually landed in the Martial Emperor's city. In an instant, they were about to extend their perception outward. However, Han Fei's perception shook and shattered all their perceptions. Han Fei said grumpily, "Don't spread your perception out for no reason. The strong masters here can kill you with a thought. Don't make trouble for me." Ishiyin asked, "Senior brother, I heard that the super resource store in the Martial Emperor city has all kinds of good things. Can we go and have a look?" Nianer added, "Brother, I want to go too." Since Iner chose to stay in the Nine Palace Heaven, Nianer had been hanging out with Ishiyin and Gu Qi, who were the youngest. She was encouraged by Ishiyin and liked them now. Han Fei snorted. "After all, I've been cultivating for several days. I'll rest today and tomorrow. I'll leave the Martial Emperor city early the day after tomorrow." Yeha! Someone immediately found Xuening and Su Kan and said, "Brother Xue, you've been to the Martial Emperor's city before. You have to show us around." "Brother Su, can you take me to my bookstore later?" But at this moment, a young man suddenly appeared in the courtyard. The young man cupped his hands to Han Fei and said, "Master Han Fei, the people on the Avenger haven't registered yet. I need to register them." Han Fei nodded slightly. "Okay, that saved me the trouble. Go register and get your own identity cards. Next time you come alone, you'll be recognized." After a moment, Han Fei gave each of them 2 million ultra-quality spiritual stones, which made the hexagon starfish's eyes turn green. Looking at the greedy hexagon starfish, Han Fei shook his head slightly. "In the future, you'll train with the Avenger. I'm afraid you've been spoiled by the time acceleration." The hexagon starfish's big eyes rolled. "Don't. How slow is it to cultivate in the outside world? I want to swim in the spiritual lake with Little Black and Little White." With a thought from Han Fei, dozens of arrays merged and finally fell on the hexagon starfish, directly sealing his mouth. He said, "Don't nag. You've been used to a good life. I'm afraid you've been spoiled." At this moment, except for Luo Xiaobai and the others had followed Xuanning and Su Can to the Chu sect. They really needed someone to explain the prosperity of the martial emperor city. Luo Xiaobai and the others looked at Han Fei, and Han Fei briefly told them the result of the matter. Lu Rinquang exclaimed, "This is like asking a turtle in its shell." Zhang Xuanyu said, "So, now that both of you have made a heavenly Tao oath, are we really going to ally with the royal family of the mermaids? You haven't discussed this with other allies yet, have you?" Han Fei said, "Don't worry about others. This is a deal between the Yin-Yang Heaven and the royal family of the mermaids, and it has nothing to do with other people. Well, it can't be helped. If the girl wants to go through the tribulation, she can't avoid the royal family of the mermaids. This is actually not a loss." Luo Xiaobai said, "The question is, can Xiaochan go to the royal family of the mermaids alone? Can Shun Huangdian represent the entire royal family of the mermaids? Will Xiaochan be in danger?" Han Fei frowned. "I don't think so. The girl can only extract that wisp of divine blood when she becomes a king." Xia Xiaochan said, "Now that I know this, I must return this drop of blood. But at least I haven't gone yet. I won't go to the royal family of the mermaids until the Yin-Yang Heaven is born. If I die," Xia Xiaochan said, and looked at Han Fei. Han Fei sneered. "If you die, there will be no royal family of the mermaids in this world." The stronger one was, the easier one could understand how simple the destruction of a race was. The strong were the rules, and they had their reasons. If the strong wanted you to live and die, you would live and die. Since this principle was followed in this world, Han Fei was no exception. Say, on this day, the information of the Avengers pirate crew's personnel allocation was immediately seen by countless people. When they saw that this fleet of more than 50 people had at most 15 or 16 Half-King realm powerhouses, and the weakest one had reached the intermediate Venerable realm, they couldn't help but be surprised. This force could only be described as very strong. Of course, what made the intelligence personnel speechless on this day was that the crew of the Avengers were so King rich. These people wandered in the super resource store of the Martial Emperor's city, spending 1 million ultra-quality spiritual stones on average. In just one day, it was said that this group of people had spent more than 60 million ultra-quality spiritual stones. Of course, this couldn't be compared with the consumption of Han Fei and the others. But this was by no means a small number. The main reason was that this group of people was dazzled. Along the way, they felt that even the garbage in the super resource store was a treasure. Although they had made a variety of resource allocation plans, they still spent a lot. Among them, Nian and Yixian had spent the most. They didn't even have a stone left. They spent all the 2 million ultra-quality spiritual stones. Mainly, it was Su Daiji who said this. She said, "Senior brother said that we can go through the back door." Second update, asking for votes into this chapter. Chapter 1928. To avoid being ambushed, Han Fei left Martial Emperor City with everyone in the Origin Sea. Now, Han Fei's Origin Sea seemed to have become a moving world like the sea-quelling painting, which made the sea-quelling painting basically useless. Even though Han Fei knew every immortal palace had a sea-quelling painting, he did not go out of his way to collect them. He wondered, if I collect them one by one, how am I supposed to get these people to ally with me? I might as well wait until I'm powerful enough to deter the entire 36 profound heavens, and then I'll consider collecting all the sea-quelling paintings and see if there are any secrets in them. A day later, Spider King City in the myriad poison heaven. When Han Fei came again this time, he didn't need to be as secretive as last time. Han Fei did not hide, so as soon as he arrived in the myriad poison heaven, he heard the myriad poison ancestor's voice. "I thought you ran away with the Imperial Violet Smoke Cauldron. I really didn't expect that. It's only been a few decades, and you've actually become a sea expansion king." On a certain mountain peak in the great desolate swamp, Han Fei and the myriad poison ancestor, Huang Jie, stood side by side. Huang Jie said, "Where's the Imperial Violet Smoke Cauldron? Let me take a look." Han Fei waved his hand casually, and a pale cauldron with purple mist hovered in the air. Huang Jie's eyes were filled with infatuation. He clicked his tongue and said, "That's right. It's indeed the Imperial Violet Smoke Cauldron, a holy artifact of the world, a priceless treasure." Ha ha ha! Is the old lady exploding with anger? It's so refreshing. Han Fei smiled. "Elder Huang, I've come to ask for two things this time." Huang Jie thought, since he can find the Imperial Violet Smoke Cauldron, let alone two things, even if I want 10 things, I can do them all. Han Fei said, "First, lend me the Imperial Violet Smoke Cauldron for 10 years. Body refining? You're using a pill cauldron to refine your body?" Han Fei smiled. "I've discovered that in this pill cauldron, body refining seems to be more effective." Huang Jie narrowed his eyes. "I don't mind if you want to refine yourself as a pill. However, the day you return the pill cauldron will be the day you truly ally with the myriad poison heaven." Han Fei slightly nodded. Of course, now that Han Fei had united with the royal family of mermaids, he was no longer in a hurry to find other allies. All these years, in order to nurture these people on the Avenger, he had wasted a lot of his time. Huang Jie was not in a hurry. Although Han Fei was now powerful, Huang Jie was sure that Han Fei still needed allies. It could be seen from the battle when Han Fei returned to the Savage Abyss. His enemy was not someone that Han Fei could fight alone. Having lost the supreme violet smoke furnace for tens of thousands of years, Huang Jian naturally did not mind losing it for another 10 years. Huang Jie said, "You have two requests. What's the other one?" Han Fei smiled. Of course, the 9-poison treasure silkworm. Han Fei was implying that he wanted Huang Jie to provide him with a way to resist the soul poison. When he was with Huang Jie, since he knew about the 9 poisons treasure silkworm, he certainly wouldn't let it go. Although he rarely encountered poison cultivators and famous poisons in all his experiences, this was not a reason for him to let his guard down. Han Fei thought it was very necessary to refine a poison-resistant body at every level. In this chaotic sea, there were countless poisonous creatures. As long as he stood on the sea and scanned with his perception, there would be a lot of them. Although he could crush them now, it did not mean that he could crush any poisonous creature in the future. Therefore, it was very important to nip them in the bud. In particular, the soul poison was even more important. Huang Jie said, "Although the 9 poisons treasure silkworm is rare, it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. On the day when the supreme violet smoke furnace is returned, the 9 poisons treasure silkworm will be presented to you. At the same time, I will explain the way to resist poison in the soul." Han Fei slightly cupped his hands. "In that case, thank you, Senior." Huang Jie couldn't help but say, "You haven't achieved either of these 2 requests. Are you sure it's okay?" Han Fei thought for a moment. "There is one more thing that I need to ask." Huang Jie knew it wouldn't be so simple. He heard him say, "Just say it." Han Fei smiled. "Elder Huang, do you have a way to develop a great poison that can deal with heaven-opening state experts?" Huang Jie didn't expect that Han Fei would target the heaven-opening state. He thought to himself, "There's so many sea-opening realm experts. You haven't even dealt with them yet, and you're already thinking about the heaven-opening state?" However, in Han Fei's eyes, Huang Jie hesitated, which made his eyes light up. Is there a chance? Han Fei didn't have much hope at first, but seeing Han Fei's reaction, he couldn't help but feel excited. Huang Jie said leisurely, "The heaven-opening state has always been the direction of my research. Even if there is such a strange poison, I won't give it to you easily. If I don't die, the 10,000 poison heaven will be finished. Do you understand what I mean?" Of course, Han Fei understood. The most poisonous poison in the world must come from the 10,000 poison heaven. If he really didn't die, the 10,000 poison heaven would be in great trouble. However, Han Fei said, "Elder Huang, I'm afraid you haven't realized what kind of battle you are involved in. The Yin-Yang Heaven and the Grand Pure Wuji can only fight to the death. Now, you should know who's standing on the right side." Huang Jian nodded slightly. "The 4 palaces, including the immeasurable sword god, the ice snow heaven, and your Yin-Yang Heaven and Waterwood Heaven. Even if you include my 10,000 poison heaven, you are still far from it." Han Fei grinned. "You can count 9 palace heaven." 9 palace heaven? Huang Jie couldn't help But look at Han Fei. Nine Palace Heaven had disappeared for tens of thousands of years. However, he had guessed Han Fei's identity. He couldn't help but wonder if Han Fei had found the ruins of Nine Palace Heaven. Huang Jie said, "How much strength can Nine Palace Heaven have left? It was almost destroyed back then." Han Fei said, "Apart from Nine Palace Heaven, I have other allies. It's not that I want to stir up internal strife in the human race. It's that the 36 mysterious heavens have collapsed for too long, and an imperial palace has trapped this place for 100,000 years. Even if I give you another 100,000 years, so what? Elder Huang, you are betting that I will break the boundaries of this place." Seeing that Huang Jie was silent, Han Fei said, "Senior, it doesn't matter whether you believe what I said or not. The important thing is that if you really have a poison to deal with people in the heaven-opening realm, remember to prepare it. What if you want to use it? All right, that's all I have to say. I'll take my leave now." Wait a minute. Old Huang Jie looked at Han Fei, but didn't mention the poison. Instead, he asked, "Did old Madame Chiu really refine a 9th-grade divine pill?" Han Fei sneered. "No." Huang Jie asked, "A nest of 8th grade?" Han Fei said, "One 8th grade, and the rest were swept clean by Wang Yijian. I risked my life to snatch one." Not knowing if Huang Jie believed it or not, the old man turned his head to look at the great desolate swamp and said leisurely, "I knew it. With that old vicious woman's ability, she can only refine 8th grade pills by luck. How can she refine a 9th grade one?" While Huang Jie was talking, Han Fei had disappeared. Huang Jie didn't care, but continued to stand on the top of the mountain for a long time. 1 year later, on a certain route, a big black boat was drifting alone on the sea, and on this boat, there was only one person sitting on the bow, fishing leisurely. If one could sweep over 100,000 kilometers, one would definitely find that there were as many as 67 battles taking place within a radius of 100,000 kilometers. There were often waves and ripples that could stir this big black boat. Swish, he saw a round dart-like object flash by. Xia Xiaochan threw out her hook, but it didn't catch that guy. The next moment, Xia Xiaochan shouted, "Big starfish, you are lazy again. If Han Fei finds out, you will suffer a lot." The hexagon starfish couldn't help but say, "Starfish has worked very hard. Starfish has fought 3 battles in a row today. Now, Starfish has learned to fight." Xia Xiaochan bared her teeth. "You call that fighting? Let's go. I will teach you personally." The hexagon starfish cried, Hey, don't. Starfish is just joking. Don't." In Han Fei's origin sea, a purple pill furnace was emitting purple flames. In the furnace, Han Fei was sitting cross-legged, and his flesh and blood were flowing with the color of golden jade. Upon a closer look, this golden jade color had covered every corner of his body. The top of the furnace collapsed and flew away, and a golden light flashed out. Han Fei's eyes flickered with golden light, and his soul condensed into a big shadow in the void, as if it were a world. Suddenly, the old turtle's voice sounded. "You finally came out of seclusion? This time, you have cultivated for more than 31 years. It seems that your body and soul have made breakthroughs again." Han Fei sighed. "I've finally mastered this technique. It's time to set off to find those immortal palaces with news." The 3rd chapter, a transitional chapter to prepare for the next plot. Soon, end of this chapter. Chapter 1929. 12 years passed. Hula, in a sea area that was raging and almost completely covered by violent hurricanes, a big black ship was rising and falling in the waves. On the deck, a man and a woman stood quietly and motionlessly. From time to time, there would be a figure flashing past in the violent hurricane. A wind demon twisted in the wind and was killed by a sword. Hiu. 10,000 kilometers away, chains were dancing crazily in the sky, and a mantis shrimp more than 500 meters long killed 4 wind demons on its chains. They were swallowed by it. Who else could it be if not the 9-tailed mantis shrimp? 100,000 kilometers away, vines were wandering in the wind like waterfalls. At this moment, there was a half-king realm wind demon that was trapped by numerous vines that seemed like chains. At this moment, It was charging about in all directions while blades of wind covered the sky. However, as the vines constricted, the place was completely blocked by the demonic plants, and the half-king wind demon was eventually strangled in the vines. Yes, after more than 10 years, the Avenger had experienced so many legends on the vast sea. On its way to find the flying feather sky, it encountered a violent hurricane. And this violent hurricane was already the 5th one they had encountered in the past half a month. They seemed to have walked into an area enshrouded in a violent hurricane. Xia Xiaochan said, "The power of the violent hurricane is getting stronger and stronger." Swish, a streak of golden light flashed by, and Luo Xiaobai stood on it and flew 3,000 kilometers away. She returned to the Avenger in the blink of an eye. Chirp, Xiao Jin circled around the boat for a while and then flew out with a whoosh. He liked this kind of environment very much and could fly freely. Luo Xiaobai glanced at Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan. This violent hurricane is unusual. It's just the beginning, and a half-king wind demon has already appeared. Also, the number of half-king wind demons has obviously increased. Han Fei said, "It doesn't matter. I suspect that these are 2 violent hurricanes that have collided. Let's advance slowly and take the sea-shaking wind pearl first." Luo Xiaobai said, "I just had an illusion. Do you feel that this place looks like the Wind Sky Canyon?" Han Fei was intrigued, but he asked in confusion, "There are no wind sky wings here." Suddenly, Han Fei looked ahead, where the void vine burst out a distress signal. Swish, with a flash of golden light, Han Fei disappeared from the Avenger. The vine of the void was no longer the vine of the void that did not seek to improve. After so many years, it had reached the peak of the Venerable One for 5 to 6 years. Logically speaking, with the void vine's unique ability to travel through the void, it was almost impossible for even a half-monarch realm powerhouse to catch him. However, within the violent hurricane, there was a creature that actually used the power of the wind to cut through the void, sealing off the void vine's escape route. "Bold demon plant, you dare intrude into the raging wind domain. You must die." The bird spoke the human language and spewed out azure flames from its mouth. Its sharp claws tore through the air and went straight for the void vine. However, the void vine instinctively mobilized the void storm in an attempt to strangle the bird. However, the feathers on the giant bird flew out like blades, and thousands of feathers swept across, changing the wind and disrupting the void. Seeing that it was not good, the void vine immediately crushed the jade slip and shouted, "Captain, help!" "Huh? You have accomplices?" With a thought, the giant azure bird's perception swept through the surroundings, but it didn't find anyone. However, it didn't know that its perception range was just not large enough. Humph! Pretentious die. When the void vine was about to be cut into pieces, a golden light quietly appeared. The green giant bird was greatly shocked, and 1,000 feather blades were about to strangle it. The tiny figure casually waved his hand, causing the 1,000 feather blades to fly backward, causing the gust of wind to shatter. The void was back to normal. The void vine came out with a whoosh. One of its vines pointed at the green bird and said, "Captain, this bird is so unreasonable. It's definitely not a good bird." Han Fei glanced at it, and information popped up in his eyes. Name, Storm Dragon Eagle. Introduction, an ancient exotic creature that lives in storm-prone places. It moves as fast as stars and can escape in the wind. It can freely control the power of the wind. Its feathers are like blades, scattered like wind blades, and gathered like divine wings. It cannot be underestimated. Level 89, quality, ancient exotic species, realm, half-king, contains chaotic energy greater than 298 wisps, battle skills, wind-piercing void, 1,000 feather divine blade slash, barrier-breaking demon claw, collectible dragon eagle eyes, dragon eagle claws, storm heart. Absorbable, remarks the storm dragon eagle is violent and not easy to tame. Han Fei frowned. It turned out to be a half-king storm dragon eagle, which looked extraordinary. Han Fei's pressure fell, and the storm dragon eagle only felt a terrifying pressure on its body, which made its soul tremble. The giant bird's body suddenly dispersed, turning into a gust of wind as it attempted to escape. However, Han Fei smiled. Seal. With a thought, 100 arrays appeared and the wind suddenly stopped, just like how the storm dragon eagle blocked the void vines just now. The wind gathered and turned into a big bird, and the storm dragon eagle said in horror, King. The storm dragon eagle was appalled. After realizing Han Fei's strength, it quickly apologized. I didn't know you were here. I didn't mean to offend you, okay? Han Fei didn't care about the life and death of a half-king, but the half-king seemed to be absent-minded, which made him a little curious. Han Fei immediately looked into the distance. Unfortunately, the wind of the violent hurricane could tear apart perception. Even Han Fei's perception couldn't be extended very far. But Han Fei wasn't in a hurry. He asked, Are there other people of your kind in this hurricane? The storm dragon eagle didn't want to answer, but Han Fei was a king. Even if it concealed its strength, Han Fei could still find out. So, the storm dragon eagle said, Your Majesty, behind is the hunting ground of my clan and some itinerant human beings. Please have mercy. I'll dismiss them as soon as possible. There are humans? Han Fei couldn't help narrowing his eyes. It seems that humans who can survive in this wind domain have been found. The storm dragon eagle's heart trembled. What did Han Fei mean? Han Fei was not in a hurry. He looked at the void vine and said, Go inform everyone on the Avenger to approach the Avenger. If you encounter a humanoid expert with wings, don't attack blindly. Hearing this, the void vine immediately realized that they had found the flying feather sky. Immediately, the void vine was overjoyed. Yes, Captain. The void vine disappeared in a flash, and Han Fei frowned slightly. According to the nautical Vientiane, the flying feather sky and the shadowless sky were in the same direction. Now that they had found the flying feather sky, what about the shadowless sky? Could it be that the shadowless sky had been destroyed, or the two great immortal palaces had joined hands? Or had they not arrived at the shadowless sky yet? However, no matter what, it was good to find the flying feather sky. In the past 12 years, the Avenger had been searching for people in addition to training. Now only the 10-colored sky, the flying feather sky, and the shadowless sky had not been found. The other celestial palaces had contact with them, and now Fei Yuqian had found it. He had finally found another immortal palace before the opening of the Emperor Palace. Because Han Fei had planned to return to the core area of the chaotic Azure Sea in half a year at most. Who would have thought that they would meet at this moment? He could only see that within the raging hurricane. The void vines were everywhere. He shouted, Captain's orders, return to the vicinity of the Avenger and await further orders. Swoosh, 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 the figures shouted one after another. The void vines. Which direction is the ship? The void vine became a guiding light. When everyone saw where the void vine pointed, they immediately returned to the ship. After a while, on the Avenger, a group of people returned with a swoosh. Xia Xiaochan wondered, Why are you all back? Zhang Xuanyu asked, Didn't the void vine tell us to come back? White Ferret. Looks like everyone has been notified. Swish, Lu Rinquang emerged from the void. Smashed. I was chasing a half-king realm wind demon and was about to take him down. Why were you suddenly called back? What happened? At this moment, a blue light flashed, and a beautiful girl seemed to appear out of thin air. The girl's eyes were innocent, her hair was braided, and she was stuffing jerky into her mouth. Xia Xiaochan asked, where are Daji and the others? At this moment, Nian Er's strength was astonishing, and even Luo Xiaobai and the others couldn't see her clearly. And Nian seemed to have entered the half-king realm without any hindrance. Nian said, I'm not with them. Oh, by the way, sister-in-law, I saw someone with wings. Someone with wings? Luo Xiaobai and Xia Xiaochan couldn't help but look at each other. Fei Yuqian? But at this moment, the void vine appeared. Not good. Yixian and the others are surrounded by a group of birdmen. There are 3 half-kings among them. Luo Xiaobai's face changed slightly. Let's go and have a look. Void vine, tell them not to hurt each other. Just hold them off for a while. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 1930. Over the years, the Avenger had been traveling through the sea routes like they were traveling on flat ground. Their strength was several times stronger than when they left the savage abyss. Even Ishiin, Su Daiji, and the others had reached the peak of the mid-level Venerable Realm. Most of them were already at the peak of the Venerable Realm or Half a King Realm. Han Fei had already poured all of his resources into nurturing them. How could the resources they hunted be enough to nurture so many experts in a short period of 20 years? It could be said that every single person here was a seed, a genius with exceptional talent. Any one of them would be able to shake the world with their might. After 12 years, the number of people on the Avenger had dropped to 53. At this point, not a single one of them could be missing. At this moment, Ishiin and the others were surrounded by 7 or 8 winged humanoids. There were also several large birds hovering in the wind. There were people standing on them. These people were quite unique. All of them were humanoids with wings, and their hair was white. As for the people standing on the birds, they looked no different from ordinary people. At this moment, someone shouted at Ishiin and the others. "Who are you? Where did you come from? What was that demonic vine that escaped just now?" Xingyu said, "Everyone, you should be from the flying feather heavens, right? We came from the core region of the chaotic Azure Sea to search for the lost immortal palace." Compared to Ishiin and the others, they needed someone with a calm temperament to speak at the crucial moment. Xingyu might be the weakest among them, but fortunately, he was quick-witted and adaptable. That was why he was the leader of the 5. The expressions of the flying feather heavens changed drastically. People from the core region of the chaotic Azure Sea? One had to know that in the ancient history books, there were many factions in the chaotic vast sea, and many immortal palaces avoided the war, struggling to survive. The ironclad rule of the flying feather heavens was that no one was allowed to leave the violent wind domain. Now, outsiders had actually come to find them. This made them curious. Many people did not have the intention to kill immediately. Instead, they were more curious. However, someone suddenly shouted from the crowd, "Take them down. The location of the violent wind domain must not be leaked by them." This person's words immediately reminded everyone, causing them to break out in cold sweat. That's right, back then, our ancestors had thought of a way to escape from the core area of the chaotic Azure Sea and found this raging wind domain. Now that there were outsiders here, the first thing they had to worry about wasn't curiosity, but that they couldn't let these people go. Xingyu's expression changed slightly, but he did not make a sound. He only said, "Don't do anything." However, there were experts from the soaring feather heaven who drew their bows and threatened, "Bring us to capture that demonic vine that escaped earlier. Otherwise, don't blame us for being impolite." Xingyu suddenly raised his head and looked at the man. "Wu. 10. Everyone." Xingyu 9. 8. In the face of the unknown, even if Xingyu and the others were weaker than these people, their calmness caused the expressions of these soaring feather heavens experts to change. What did this mean? A woman shouted, "What do you mean? Do you think that we won't dare to attack you?" Xingyu 5. 4. Whoosh. Seeing that Xingyu didn't reply, a feather sky expert shot out an arrow. When the arrow shot out, Taoist rhyme appeared, and the image of a phoenix arrived in an instant. However, Su Daiji suddenly shouted. The hammer in her hand shone with golden light, and when she moved her arm, it was as if lightning had exploded. Ding, boom, the person who attacked was a high-level venerable. He originally just wanted to teach Xingyu a lesson. However, Su Daiji attacked and destroyed the power of the arrow with her hammer. She didn't even take half a step back, which made that person shocked and angry. Someone from the soaring feather heaven was surprised. That girl is so strong. No matter how weak Yi Feng's arrow is, it should at least be able to injure her. But she didn't move at all? Are the people from the outside all so strong? The leader was a woman. Her aura descended, trying to suppress Xingyu and the others. Of course, when the aura really came down, the 5 people looked normal, as if they didn't feel it all. Xingyu 3. 2. The face of the woman leading the soaring feather heaven turned cold. She directly attacked. She wanted to take Xingyu down before he finished shouting. The void hand froze the void. This was the real power of a demi-king. It didn't give them any chance at all. At this time, Gucci opened his armor box, and 7 sword shadows slashed in the air. The shape and appearance of this sword were very similar to Han Fei's Dao Convergent Sword. Of course, it was inferior in terms of Taoist aura. However, Gucci's attack was full of fighting spirit. He cut open the void seal with his sword, and the sword shadows resisted the void hand. The expression of the woman from the soaring feather heaven changed slightly. Ultra-quality divine weapons. 7 in 1? The others were all shocked. A mere peak mid-level venerable actually blocked the attack of a demi-king? But when they heard this, they couldn't help but exclaim. Which mid-level venerable was so extravagant as to have 7 ultra-quality divine weapons? Blood flowed from the corner of Gucci's mouth. He shouted in a low voice, "I'll borrow your hand to break my barrier." Crack! There was a crisp sound. Although Gucci couldn't penetrate the big hand with his sword, he broke through under the pressure of the sword. This scene instantly caused the woman's expression to turn ugly. "Did I act just to help you break through?" Just as she was about to capture the 5 of them, she heard a whoosh. The void was torn open, and a large ship steadily moved forward in the raging winds. It appeared less than 10 miles away from the group. As Xing Yu's last words landed, he smiled and said, "Everyone, our people are here. Do all of you wish to kill them?" Swish, swish, swish. Who dares to touch the people of the Avenger? Bullying the few with numbers? Is this the style of the soaring feather heaven? How dare you bully my little junior sister? The people of the soaring feather heaven were all shocked. Someone said, "Qingxue not good. They're all demi-kings." Someone exclaimed, "Hiss! Lady Qingxue, there are so many of them." On the back of the bird, someone was shocked. Did the outer domain discover where we are and attack? Someone was frightened. That ship doesn't look like a good one. Lady Qingxue, let's go. Zhang Xuanyu quietly appeared in front of the 5 people. Yixian immediately shouted, "Husband, you're finally here. We almost got into a fight." Zhang Xuanyu rolled his eyes at Yixian, but then he glanced at the strange people of the soaring feather heaven and said coldly, "Is it fun to bully a few mid-level supremacies? Why don't we have some fun?" Qingshua's expression was ugly. The other party was aggressive, and they all looked murderous. It was obvious that they were not good people. Moreover, there were demonic plants, ferocious beasts, humans, insects, and the unknown fellow from the sky race. What kind of clan did this strange group belong to? Qingxue suddenly shouted and sent a voice transmission, "Run, go back, and report to the elders of the race." However, as soon as Qingxue finished speaking, she suddenly realized that she could not move. Not only Qingxue, but all the experts of the soaring feather heaven were also unable to move. The ordinary storm dragon eagles could not even flap their wings at this moment. Around them, the violent wind seemed to have stopped. They could not fall, nor could they move. They were like fish waiting to be slaughtered. At this moment, opposite Qingxue, many people shouted, "Captain, brother, Han Fei, don't tell me you just came." Of course, Han Fei hadn't just arrived. He had been watching for a while. He came, but he let go of the half-king realm storm dragon eagle. His intention was simple. He just wanted the dragon eagle to go back and inform the others. Otherwise, it would be too presumptuous for the Avenger to suddenly arrive. Qingxue turned her head with difficulty, only to see a young man next to her. She couldn't help but be shocked. A sea expansion realm expert? He was definitely a sea expansion realm expert. Han Fei said leisurely, "What are you doing? Can't you be more friendly?" Everyone was speechless. "You want us to be friendly, but are you friendly yourself?" Under the pressure of a sea expansion realm expert, they couldn't even move. As soon as Han Fei raised his hand, Qingxue and the others were suddenly relieved, but they dared not move at this moment. Qingshue's face changed greatly, and she hurriedly stepped back. She looked up at Han Fei and quickly lowered her head. "Greetings, Master King." Han Fei put his hands behind his back and pretended to be a master. "Well, let's wait here." Qingxue and the other experts of the soaring feather heaven couldn't help but wonder who Han Fei was waiting for. Someone worthy of a king's wait must be a king of their clan, right? Qingxue didn't dare to ask. Who could resist a sea expansion realm expert except for a king? At this moment, she could only wait. Han Fei said, "Miss, are you the same race?" Han Fei's eyes fell on the normal humans standing on the back of the storm dragon eagles. They had no wings, and their hair was not white. They looked just like normal people. Qingxue gritted her teeth and finally said, "Master, they are allies of the lawless heaven." "Oh, no wonder." No wonder Han Fei pointed in the same direction when he was looking for the lawless heaven and the soaring feather heaven. Although he had guessed it before, seeing was believing. Han Fei nodded slightly. So, the two divine palaces of the soaring feather heaven and the lawless heaven are hiding here to recuperate? This time, Qingxue didn't speak, but it was the truth. At this moment, suddenly, two auras penetrated the storm and descended. In the gale, there was a voice spinning in the hurricane, and the voice seemed to come from all directions. "Who are you? Why are you disturbing the soaring feather heaven?" Second update. Asking for votes. End of this chapter. Chapter 1931. In the middle of the furious tornadoes, the two lords broke through the wind and arrived. One of them had pure white wings on his back, which were not the wings of the wind sky wings, but the natural wings of the flying feather heaven. The other person was thin and looked like a normal human being. Just like Han Fei and the others, he looked like an orthodox human being. Naturally, Han Fei couldn't tell their strength, but he estimated that there were no heaven creation state experts in the flying feather heaven, so he didn't really care. Han Fei slightly cupped his hands. "Junior Han Fei, the current master of the Yin-Yang heaven, is pleased to meet you, seniors." The Yin-Yang heaven? The king of the flying feather heaven couldn't help but look at the man next to him in surprise. The man was obviously the king of the shadowless heaven. He slightly frowned. If it were the Yin-Yang heaven, they would have been on friendly terms with the shadowless heaven. However, the master of the Yin-Yang heaven had changed, and so had the shadowless heaven. It was said that the heavenly desolation city had fallen into the territory of the Yin-Yang heaven, which had been badly beaten. It was truly unexpected that they met again. The man couldn't help but ask, "Fellow cultivator Han Fei, how did you find this place, and why are you here?" Han Fei couldn't help but look at Xia Xiaochan. "Girl." Xia Xiaochan blinked and appeared next to Han Fei. They looked at each other and extended their hands at the same time. 2 drops of water appeared in their hands. The king of the shadowless heavens' face changed greatly. "Chaotic original water?" Han Fei said with a smile. "I'm here to find the flying feather heaven and the shadowless heaven, and to fulfill a wish to rebuild the heavenly desolation city." Even Luo Xiaobai and the others didn't know that. Neither Han Fei nor Xia Xiaochan had mentioned it. So even the people on the Avenger were dumbfounded when they heard it. Rebuild the heavenly desolation city? The two kings looked at each other in disbelief, especially the king of the shadowless heaven, who thought to himself, "Our main city has been gone for tens of thousands of years, and an outsider wants to rebuild it? Who wouldn't be dumbfounded?" Qingxue and the other experts of the shadowless heaven looked at each other in bewilderment. They didn't expect that the man was the master of the Yin-Yang heaven. Han Fei asked, "Seniors, won't you introduce yourselves?" The person from the flying feather heaven cupped his hand slightly. "Since we are all at the sea expansion realm, there is no such thing as seniors or juniors. I am the current palace master of the soaring feather heavens, Xie. Greetings, Brother Han. I am Li Yingtian, the current palace lord of the cloudless heaven. Greetings, Brother Han." Although the two of them had met, there was naturally no trust between them. Because Han Fei's appearance was too sudden, it was not necessarily a good thing for the flying feather heavens and the shadowless heavens that had been peaceful for a long time. However, Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan had taken out the chaotic original water anyway, which meant that they were the ones chosen by the chaotic original water, so Li Yingtian was reassured for now. Xiu glanced at the people Han Fei brought, and his eyelids twitched. There were a total of 53 people. Among them, 26 were half-emperors, and the remaining half were peak venerables. How could such strength be described as terrifying? If one didn't know better, one might even think that they were envoys from one of the 36 immortal palaces. He heard Xiu say, "Brother Han, since you're here, why don't you come? Why don't you rest in my soaring feather sky first? We could sit down and talk about it in detail." Xiaoyu and Li Yingtian looked at each other and invited Han Fei with a smile. But Han Fei also knew that. They invited him to go to the Immortal Palace because Xiaoyu could use the power of the Flying Feather Heaven Palace. Each family had its own Immortal Palace, which was not just for decoration. Just like the Yin-Yang Palace, it was also protected by the Heaven and Earth Natural Array. The Immortal Palace contained a large amount of energy reserves. If it was completely used, it would be a very terrifying source of power. However, if that was all, Han Fei was not afraid. Of course, Han Fei's main purpose was not to fight. What he said was the truth. This time, he searched for the Immortal Palaces in order of distance. Han Fei and Xia Xiaochan had long planned to go to the Shadowless Heavens. Others might not know, but the two of them still remembered that they promised Li Huang to rebuild the Heavenly Desolation City and release the curse on them. Of course, whether the curse was still there or not, Han Fei didn't know. Perhaps with Li Huang's strength, he had already broken free from the curse. However, whether the curse was still there or not, he had finally agreed to it. The reconstruction of the Heavenly Desolation City was also a wish for them. After a moment, after leaving the furious hurricane, all the crew members of the Avenger boarded the ship and went to the Flying Feather Heaven. The Flying Feather Heaven lived in the sky, which was understandable. However, when everyone, including Han Fei, saw the floating island of the Flying Feather Heaven, they were all stunned. What was that? They saw that above the endless sky, a huge bird-shaped island was floating in the sky. Under the floating island, in the belly of the mountain, there were a large number of giant birds flying in and out. The arrival of the Avenger attracted the attention of the flock of birds, who flapped their wings and came over to see what was going on. Above the void, Han Fei, Xiaoyu, and Li Yingtian walked as if they were taking a walk. Han Fei asked in surprise, "Storm dragon eagles are the only birds here?" Li Yingtian couldn't help but be surprised. "Brother Han, do you know storm dragon eagles?" "Yes, storm dragon eagles used to live in the Shadowless Heavens. Later, the Shadowless Heavens escaped from the war and brought some of them here." The storm dragon eagle wasn't the only creature that could survive in the violent wind domain. The other bird-type creatures had long since perished. So, we're now in a mutually dependent relationship with the storm dragon eagles. Han Fei nodded slightly. These storm dragon eagles had different levels of strength and bloodlines. For example, the storm dragon eagle he had encountered before was probably one of the purest bloodlines among the storm dragon eagles. That was why it could roam freely in the violent wind domain. Compared with the people of the Shadowless Heavens, the people of the Flying Feather Heaven were actually much more convenient. This was mainly for those below the Explorer level. There was a big difference between having wings and not having wings. Han Fei glanced around. In many places on this vast land, there were children playing in the sky. Of course, Han Fei also saw a lot of strange people. They could form wings that looked like phantoms, which were half real and half real, but there weren't many such people. As if knowing what Han Fei was looking at, Xiaoyu said, "The Flying Feather Heaven and the Shadowless Heavens have been together for many years, and the two families are as close as one family. So, in terms of marriage, they are relatively free. Some children can inherit the characteristics of the Flying Feather Heaven, some can't, and some can only inherit the wings. And those who can't inherit the wings can also set foot in the sky with the storm dragon eagle as a contractual spiritual beast." Han Fei couldn't help but smile. The Flying Feather Heaven is the most special immortal palace I've seen apart from the Beast King Heaven. On the floating island of the Flying Feather Heaven, the storm dragon eagles lived in the lower half, and the surface was mostly covered with trees. People mostly lived in the trees. The people of the Shadowless Heavens did as the Romans did, so they naturally slept in the trees. As a result, these trees were transformed into semi-residential wooden houses, a bit like the Tree Core City in the Wind Thunder Town. In the Flying Feather Heaven, all the transactions and human activities were done in the woods. As for the location of the Immortal Palace, it was not something that he could figure out. Every Immortal Palace should have an entrance, so he didn't need to look for it. Siu arranged for someone to entertain Xia Xiaochan and the others, while he, Li Yingtian and Han Fei talked in detail on an ancient tree. Li Yingtian said, "To tell you the truth, Brother Han, according to the historical records, the heavenly desolation city fell into the Yin-Yang heaven and then into the wilderness. Since then, although the shadowless heavens still controlled the 36 towns, they only existed in name. In the chaos of the war, only the 12 towns survived. At that time, the flying feather heaven took in the remnants of the shadowless heavens, which is why the shadowless heavens have survived to this day. But as you can see, Brother Han, the shadowless heavens and the flying feather heaven have long been integrated. So let's forget about rebuilding the heavenly desolation city." Han Fei certainly could see that, but rebuilding the heavenly desolation city wasn't as simple as it seemed. He said, "Li Huang, the city lord of the heavenly desolation city, planted a curse on me. If I don't fulfill my promise, I will suffer a backlash in the future." Xiaoyu and Li Yingtian were both relieved. So that was what happened. Sure enough, they didn't come to him for no reason. But then, Han Fei said, "But rebuilding the heavenly desolation city is not urgent. I didn't come here just for this matter." Xiaoyu asked, though, "Is there anything else, Brother Han?" Han Fei said, "Guys, how did the flying feather heaven and the shadowless heavens end up like this?" Xiaoyu said, "It started with the war. It's sad that they fought for treasures." Li Yingtian said, "The heavenly desolation city fell because the old man from the Grand Purity Palace broke through the array." Han Fei said with a smile, "I do have a favor to ask. Now, humans were stuck in their old ways and were trapped in the chaotic Azure Sea. Even though this place is huge, it's not a place where thousands of clans live. There are thousands of clans outside, and they can't even open the sky. But human beings are trapped here, and it's hard for us to open the sky. Hee. Have you ever thought about the unification of human beings?" Xiaoyu and Li Yingtian's pupils constricted, and their hearts skipped a beat. He was obviously a warmonger. Chapter 1932. What? Brother Han wants to deal with the grand pure Wuji and unify the 36 immortal palaces of the human race? Xiaoyu and Li Yingtian were both surprised. They knew that Han Fei was belligerent, but they didn't expect him to be so ambitious. What he said was enough to make them shiver. However, Han Fei said slowly, "Don't get too excited. Maybe you could say something else. Unite the 36 immortal palaces, reach an internal unity, and go to the boundless ocean hand in hand." Xiaoyu and Li Yingtian were speechless. It was just changing the word. Was there a difference in being busy? In the world of cultivators, strength reigned supreme. It was the same no matter where one went. Han Fei's purpose of coming here was to rebuild the heavenly desolate city. He was inviting the flying feather heaven and the shadowless heaven to join the battle. After all, after the exploration of the imperial palace, the human race began to fight. Some people had good opportunities and grew stronger quickly, while some didn't. The gap in strength gradually became apparent, and many immortal palaces had to live in seclusion. The purpose of living in seclusion was to avoid war. Now that Han Fei came to ask them to fight, who would be willing? Xiaoyu said, "Brother Han, this is too important. It's a matter of life and death for billions of humans." Li Yingtian frowned. "Brother Han, if you want to rebuild the heavenly desolate city and lift the curse, maybe we can think of a way. Even if it's just a formality, we can help you with the relationship between the yin-yang heaven and the shadowless heaven. But we can't send our people to the chaotic ocean to fight the grand pure Wuji and the other immortal palaces." Han Fei didn't expect them to agree immediately. He had already prepared an excuse. Han Fei said, "You too. When I found the flying feather heaven and the shadowless heaven, only the 10-colored heaven among the 36 immortal palaces was left. At present, there are 10 immortal palaces that have officially joined hands with me. A portion of them were just fence-sitters, sitting and watching the situation from the sidelines and looking at the bigger picture. Wherever the situation leans, that's where they'll lean. I'm not asking for the entire soaring feather sky and shadowless sky to come out, but if the two of you and the two venerable realm experts of the two palaces come out, that would be for the best. Therefore, when a human race is united in the future, The two great immortal palaces will be part of the participants and enjoy the benefits they deserve. It is only natural that they reappear and share the rich resources of the chaotic Azure Sea. Li Yingtian said with a straight face, Brother Han makes it sound so easy. There are only so many experts in the soaring feather sky and lawless sky. If they come out, it would be a problem for them to survive in this violent wind domain. What future do you have? Xie Yu chimed in. Brother Han, although our palaces rarely go out, that doesn't mean we've never gone out before. More than 10,000 years ago, I had once secretly searched and went to the chaotic vast ocean. However, as long as I asked around a little, I would know that the few palaces of the Grand Pure and Everlasting all had heaven-opening experts. Brother Han, I'm afraid that you're still a little lacking in terms of strength if you wish to compete with the Grand Pure Everlasting Tao. Han Fei said, Guys, I'm not here to ask you to get out of this world right now. Although the Taiching Wuji was strong, it was not unstoppable. One had to know that in the age of chaos, where did the human race get the 36 immortal palaces? The human race was united to open up new territories and walk out of this domain. Only when the Imperial Palace was born did the 36 immortal palaces come into being. The world's trend, after being united for a long time, must be divided, and after being separated for a long time, must be united. The Grand Pure, Everlasting Tao is passive and does not plan for the future of the human race. Its position should have changed long ago. You two don't have to fight for now. However, the chaotic vast ocean will be filled with blood in the future. The human race is one, and we live and die together. How can you two just sit and watch the tide rise and fall? At this moment, Han Fei's aura was extremely strong. In the future, when we stand up, no one can avoid it. Xie Yu was silent for a long time. Brother Han, is the human race's internal strife worth this much? Aren't we just letting those sea demons take advantage of us? Han Fei grinned. Do you two think that my goal is only the Grand Pure, Everlasting Tao? The two couldn't help but be shocked. If it wasn't the Grand Pure, Everlasting Tao, who else could it be? Han Fei smiled. If it's just a deal with the Grand Pure, Everlasting Tao, I don't need to look for the major immortal palaces. When a human race is in danger, the sea demons are eyeing us covetously. How can this battle be just an internal strife of the human race? Xie Yu and Li Yingtian were shocked. Han Fei wanted to launch a super large-scale expedition that would sweep across the entire chaotic vast ocean. Who knew how many people would die just from these words? Li Yingtian immediately refuted. Brother Han, do you know how many people will be sacrificed for your determination? Not to mention that the entire human race is not in your hands yet. Even if it is in your hands, aren't you afraid that the entire human race will be destroyed? You're short-sighted. Han Fei didn't give Li Yingtian any face and scolded. The current situation of the human race can't be built without destruction. If we don't unify the human race, the situation here won't be solved even after 100,000 years. If no one in the world can do it, I, Han Fei, will do it. Unify the human world, kill the sea demons, break the mist, and get out of the Imperial Palace. You two can become kings, but your minds shouldn't be like this. Even if you can't fight for the world, don't you want your people to have a better life? Han Fei's impassioned words only made Xie Yu and Li Yingtian feel that this person was crazy. They never expected Han Fei to be this crazy. You're just at the Pioneer Sea state. If you're at the heaven-opening state, we can believe you, but you're not even at the heaven-opening state. Li Yingtian and Xie Yu looked at each other. In their eyes, no matter how exaggerated Han Fei's words were, he was just a stranger. No matter how provocative Han Fei's words were, they might observe the situation in the outside world, but it was impossible for them to force their clansmen to fight. Xie Yu said, Brother Han, since you've made up your mind, we'll pay attention to the future battle. If it's really the general trend, we won't just stand by and watch. However, it's too early to talk about this now. Why don't we wait and see how Brother Han fights against the Grand Pure Wuji? Seeing that Xie Yu had spoken, Li Yingtian didn't say anything. Although he didn't like Han Fei's attitude, he acquiesced. However, Han Fei said, Brother Xie, although I have the capital to fight against the Grand Pure Wuji, it's not like you two don't have to do anything to quell the internal strife here. At least, you two need to show your attitude. Li Yingtian immediately said, if we show our attitude now, doesn't it mean that our two palaces need to at least come out and meet those people in the chaotic vast sea? Han Fei said with a smile, at the right time, just send 1 or 2 representatives. You just need to prove that your lost immortal palaces haven't disappeared and can still participate in this world. Li Yingtian sneered. In the end, you still force us to come out. If you really have 100% confidence in me, why do you come to us? Xiaoyu sighed. Hey, Brother Li, Brother Han is a guest after all. Don't be rude. Li Yingtian snorted. Humph. Han Fei, I've tolerated you for a long time. If you really want to be our guest, we'll try our best to entertain you. But what you're doing concerns billions of creatures and even the entire human race. How can you say that so casually? Alas, Han Fei sighed slightly. After all, this is inevitable no matter where I go. However, there are only a few like-minded people. Although you've reached the sea expansion realm, you're just mediocre people. One is playing the good cop, and the other is playing the bad cop. Try to deceive and avoid this matter. As human beings, you'd rather stay silent in the chaotic vast sea than return to the prosperity of the human race. You don't even want to show your face. Do you really think I'm here to chat with you from billions of kilometers away? At this moment, Han Fei suddenly stood up and stared at the sky. Since there's still a king, come out. Let me weigh the strength of the 3 of you. How confident are you that you can survive in the chaotic vast sea? Chilla Han Fei pointed his finger, and above the sky, a void vortex appeared, and a big bird emerged from it. Xiaoyu frowned. Brother Han, you're too impatient. We've just met for the first time. Han Fei snorted. You've been idling all day, but my time is precious. Since I can't convince you, I'll let you know that I can also suppress you with my strength. Li Yingtian roared angrily. How dare you? You're really up to no good. You want to fight because I can't convince you? Han Fei said, don't worry. I won't kill you. I just want you to know that there are still many people who can suppress and slaughter you in the chaotic vast sea. Don't think you can muddle through for tens of thousands of years with the seemingly hidden violent wind domain. Otherwise, even without me, you'll eventually disappear in the tide of history. Chapter 1933. With the release of Han Fei's aura and the appearance of the 3rd king of the flying feather heavens, the friendly relationship between them turned into a battle state. The main reason was that Han Fei was too domineering, directly suppressing Xiaoyu and Li Yingtian. After all, in the eyes of cultivators, the strongest fist was the most important thing. If Han Fei only had the means of persuasion, it wouldn't be effective no matter how hard he tried. This was the principle that Han Fei followed. Since he couldn't convince them, he would beat them until they were convinced. He came here to seek power. If they refused to give him power, he could rob them of it. Who could stop him? Xiaoyu shouted, Brother Han, if you want to try, let's try. Of course, they didn't fight in the sky above the flying feather heavens. The battle between the 4 kings would be earth-shattering. The flying feather heavens certainly couldn't bear it. Fortunately, Han Fei only said he would suppress them, not kill them, so there was still some room for negotiation. In the void, swish, 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 3 people and 1 eagle fought in the void. Xiaoyu roared, fuse. Han Fei saw an enormous manta ray crawl into Xiaoyu's body. His wings changed, turning black and gold, and a pair of bone blades were grasped in his hands. A giant wind-shaped bird appeared under Li Yingtian, and in his hand, a pair of scissors was grasped. Li Yingtian shouted, I'd like to see how strong you are to suppress the 3 kings. Scorching sun scissors. Wherever the scorching sun passes, everything will be cut. Han Fei found that his body began to burn, and a scorching sun in the void locked his position like a mirror. These people had been together for tens of thousands of years, so their teamwork was naturally good. In the void, when a huge pair of fire scissors with a scorching sun locked on him, Xiaoyu's 2 bone blades extended infinitely like vines, as if they had become 2 bone whips. Han Fei felt that his blood was being stimulated. These bone blades seemed to have the power to stimulate blood. Once they pierced through him, they would draw blood continuously. At this moment, the two bone blades crossed and blocked his way out. The storm dragon eagle flapped its wings. Thousand feather fusion slash, Han Fei thought to himself. It seems that the storm dragon eagle in the Pioneer Sea realm has more means. 1,000 feathers combined into one, like a sword piercing the sky, is really impressive. However, Han Fei just praised it for a while. When the so-called scorching sun scissors was about to pinch Han Fei, Li Yingtian couldn't help but hesitate, wondering why this guy didn't fight back. But in the next moment, with two clangs in the attack enveloped by the scorching sun, Han Fei's hands, one on the left and one on the right, directly clasped the scissors. Li Yingtian's expression changed drastically. The pair of scissors was as red as a soldering iron, and its temperature had reached an extremely high level. However, Han Fei didn't care and resisted with his body. Bang! The scissors were pulled apart by Han Fei, and the shadow was broken. The two bone blades behind him were so sharp that Han Fei could feel their piercing power even from a long distance away. Hundreds of strange arrays appeared behind Han Fei, and after the arrays merged, a big shield appeared behind him. Clang, clang, when the bone blade stabbed at him. Han Fei didn't even look back, but raised his hand and opened his palm at the knife light of the 1,000-feather fusion slash in the sky. Clang, Han Fei pinched the knife light with one hand, clasped his 5 fingers, and suddenly grabbed it. With a bang, the fierce slash collapsed in an instant. It was just a tentative attack, but Xiaoyu, Li Yingtian, and the Storm Dragon Eagle were all dumbfounded. Is he still AF * King Human? The three of them burst out several ultimate techniques, but they couldn't even break this guy's body. The other party was able to destroy his power attack with just a casual grab. It was also at this moment that the three of them seemed to realize why Han Fei had the confidence and capital to challenge the Grand Pure Wuji. This kind of strength was really frightening to look at. Li Yingtian shouted, "No need to probe. Just attack, great wind, and scorching sun explosion." In the blink of an eye, Li Yingtian opened a big hole in the void, and a dazzling sun and essence fire rushed into the void like a pillar. And the phantom bird under Li Yingtian flapped its wings, and in the void, a storm followed. In the outside world, Luo Xiaobai and the others, who had just been entertained by some half-king realm powerhouses, suddenly looked up at the sky. The void fire pillar that suddenly appeared was obviously not Han Fei's means. Zhang Xuanyu couldn't help but say, "It seems that we have to use force." I told him that if he could use force to suppress people, why would he try to persuade the sea demons? Lu Renquang added, "I knew it would be like this. Han Fei has a bad temper and always fights whenever he disagrees with him." Luo Xiaobai nodded slightly. Fortunately, it doesn't affect the overall situation. Compared with the crew of the Avenger, the people of the flying feather heavens and the lawless heavens were not so calm. Many people secretly activated their power, so that if anything unexpected happened, they could take action in time. In the void, when wind and fire merged, a majestic sea of fire directly burned Han Fei and enveloped him. That kind of scorching flame was no longer an ordinary flame, but a flame that had been condensed and endowed with the great Tao of fire. With such little strength, you want to live in seclusion? How long has it been since you went out? Do you know how many strong masters there are in the chaotic Azure Sea now? Han Fei walked out of the flames, his body shining with golden light. He didn't look like he was roasted at all. Secret method. Xiaoyu and the Storm Dragon Eagle immediately used their secret method. He could only see the shadow of a claw in half of the sky. It seemed to be the Storm Dragon Eagle's strongest attack. When the eagle clawed at Han Fei, Xiaoyu held the longbow, which had already exploded 9 times in a row, which seemed to contain an extremely terrifying attack. Facing their attacks, Han Fei raised his hand and pointed. The great Tao Convergence Sword. As soon as the sword was drawn, light illuminated the void, and the eagle claw collapsed. Han Fei sensed that the strength of this Storm Dragon Eagle was at most similar to that of the Crazy Four Kings. In fact, it should be a bit weaker than the crazy four kings. As for Li Yingtian, his great Tao was useless against Han Fei. In the case that he was not affected, Li Yingtian was the weakest in Han Fei's eyes. With the secret method, it was hard to say whether his strength was comparable to Feng Xinlan of the glass sky. The last one, behind Xiaoyu, was a black shadow thousands of feet high. Han Fei watched the huge manta ray open its mouth and absorb the power between heaven and earth. Pop! The manta ray spat out power, and the arrow shot out. Han Fei saw a dragon roar coming out of the arrow, and a blue phoenix flying around the arrow. The void shattered layer after layer, and in the blink of an eye, it was in front of him. Han Fei suddenly raised his head, and with a sudden surge of energy, he stretched out one hand and directly caught this extremely fierce arrow. This arrow pushed Han Fei back more than 10 miles. Han Fei seemed to be almost pierced by the dragon shadow and the phoenix shadow, but in fact he was still intact. At this moment, Han Fei held the arrow in his hand, trying to push the arrow forward an inch. Seeing the arrow struggling, Han Fei stretched out his hands and suddenly bent. Crack, the arrow was shattered, and the power surged for hundreds of thousands of miles. Xiaoyu was shocked. Even this didn't work? Catching the arrow with his bare hands, was he really a pioneer sea-state powerhouse? Han Fei sighed leisurely. With your strength, it's really hard for you to survive in the chaotic ocean sea to this day. You're a bit weak, but if you could trust me, there may be a turning point in the future. Your attacks are all over, aren't they? Isn't it my turn now? Suddenly, the faces of Li Yingtian, Xiaoyu, and the storm dragon eagle changed drastically. Han Fei punched out 3 times in a row, and the fist marks rumbled and contained terrifying murderous intent. Xiaoyu tried his best and shot 99 arrows in a row, but he still couldn't destroy Han Fei's attack. Li Yingtian's scorching sun scissors tried to break Han Fei's punch. However, the moment the scorching sun scissors touched the sacrificing punch, it was stopped and couldn't even close. As for the storm golden condor, it activated the void storm and managed to kill the punch with the power of the void storm. However, when it turned its head, it found that Han Fei was standing on its head at some point. At this moment, Han Fei put his hands behind his back and said leisurely, "You're so weak. The power you've been pursuing your whole life is so vulnerable. Let me put it this way. With your current strength, if you want to break through the heavens and become a monarch, it's practically a pipe dream. But if I reorganize the human race, maybe you'll have a bright future." Xiaoyu and Li Yingtian were both sent flying 1,000 miles by Han Fei and barely made it back, covered in blood. With a thought, Xiaoyu looked at Li Yingtian and the storm dragon eagle. With Han Fei's strength, they didn't need to ask for trouble at all. "Cough, cough," Xiaoyu said. "Thank you for your mercy, Brother Han. If the battle starts in the future, the flying feather heavens and the lawless heavens will certainly help. We'll take action when it's time." Han Fei threw out 3 jade slips casually and said, "When the jade slips shatter, it's when I need people. I won't use you easily until I can clearly resist and defeat a heaven-opening state expert." At this point, what else could Xiaoyu and Li Yingtian say? As long as he was willing, he could destroy the flying feather heavens with his bare hands. Even if the 3 of them joined forces, they had no chance of winning. At this time, they had no choice but to submit. Han Fei muttered in a voice that only he could hear, "You're asking for a beating." Chapter 1934. Although Han Fei was ready to suppress them with force, he still wanted to ask for their opinion every time. Unfortunately, the long years had worn away their fighting spirit. The arrival of the Avenger was not widely publicized. The only unusual thing was the explanation that the sun essence fire could penetrate the void. To the public, it was just that the kings were cultivating. In the flying feather heavens, Han Fei scanned this place with his perception and found that there were not many venerable realm experts here. The flying feather heavens and the shadowless heavens only had about 600 people in total, and only 7 or 8 more of them had reached the half-king realm in the Avenger. After the battle, Xiaoyu and Li Yingtian became more polite to Han Fei. Li Yingtian even said, "Brother Han, When do you think we should rebuild the heavenly desolate city? We just need to find a floating island. The arrays on the floating island should be taught by every immortal palace. I think you know how to do it, Brother Han. Han Fei said, "No hurry. Since the ashen sky still exists, the heavenly desolate city will be rebuilt. When the ashen sky really returns, I will rebuild the heavenly desolate city." Hearing this, Li Yingtian agreed with Han Fei. If Han Fei hadn't mentioned it, he would have forgotten that the heavenly desolate city was his main city. Now that Xie Yu and Li Yingtian had been convinced, Han Fei wouldn't stay any longer. It had been almost 21 years since he left the Yin-Yang heaven. It was time to go back. Half a month later, on the Avenger, Xia Xiaochan and Han Fei sat on the mast, and Xia Xiaochan said, "When will the heavenly desolate city be rebuilt? If it's a floating island, I know that there are seabed floating stones in the misty." Han Fei said with a smile, "Do you remember what Li Huang shouted to us?" Xia Xiaochan nodded. "When the heavenly desolate city is rebuilt, I will return to the immortal palace." Xia Xiaochan couldn't help tilting her head. Now that I think about it, although Li Huang's combat power was strong at that time, he was at most a venerable, wasn't he? Han Fei shook his head. "I think so. But maybe he was just seriously injured at that time and couldn't exert his peak strength? Or maybe Tian Wang's city fell and all the experts were killed. Li Huang was the last venerable, so he roared like that before he died." Xia Xiaochan said, "I really don't understand why human beings have the time to engage in such messy internal strife when they're suffering from both internal and external troubles." Han Fei shook his head helplessly. He could only say that the treasures they found in the imperial palace were very tempting. After all, back then, when they weren't kings yet, they had suddenly become more than 100 kings. Later on, these monarchs entered the Dharch palace again. Although more than half of them were lost, they found a way to build 36 immortal palaces. For better or for worse, every family managed to get their hands on an exceptional path that they could walk on for a long time. As for going to the Dharch palace again, most of these monarchs didn't dare to go there anymore. Perhaps some had been there before, but no one said anything. As for whether that heaven-opening expert was related to the imperial palace, no one could say for sure. In short, the resources inside the Dharch palace were precious. Any random treasure was enough to cause a bloodbath in the chaotic vast sea for tens of thousands of years. Suddenly, Song Kaiyuan appeared on the deck with a broken jade in his hand and an ugly expression on his face. Han Fei frowned. "What happened?" Song Kaiyuan said, "Something might have happened in the chaotic vast sea. This is a secret warning talisman of our Taishan heaven. Only when a major problem occurs in our Taishan palace will this secret talisman break to warn the disciples outside to protect their own safety." Han Fei's eyes turned cold. Taishan heaven had been in the inner territory for tens of thousands of years. With the Sword God Palace, who dared to touch them? But even so, something had gone wrong. It was only a little more than a year before the Dharch Palace opened. Han Fei's expression immediately changed. "10-color sky, let's go back." But Han Fei made a prompt decision. He spread out his perception and transmitted his voice to the crew members of the Avenger who were training in all directions. Everyone returned to the chaotic vast sea. In the 13 years since they came out of Jiugong Heaven, the Avenger pirates seemed to have disappeared from the chaotic vast sea. Not a single robbery had anything to do with them. This made many people think that Han Fei and the others had been secretly punished by someone, because the Avenger quickly disappeared from everyone's sight, and a new major event was about to happen. But the Grand Purity Palace, on the grounds that they were all humans but didn't work together to resist the sea demons, said that the Sword God Palace and the other 4 palaces had not fulfilled their duties as the 13 heavens of the inner territory. So, they attacked the Sword God Palace. When the Grand Purity Palace attacked the Sword God Palace, the Wuji Heaven was patrolling the 13 heavens of the outer territory. The Grand Purity Palace had a heaven-opening state cultivator who was enough to stop the Sword God, and the Wuji ancestor, Bei Luochun, was also a heaven-opening state cultivator. When he patrolled the 13 heavens of the outer territory, people immediately smelled a conspiracy. Grand Purity and Wuji were in charge of internal affairs and external affairs. What was the purpose of such a grand event just before the Arch Palace opened? 13 days later, in the chaotic vast sea, a golden light flashed every few 100,000 miles. The frequency was so high and the speed was so fast that anyone who saw it would be dumbfounded. In the 13 heavens of the outer territory, Han Fei was only familiar with two. One was the Snow God Palace, and the other was the 10,000 Poison Heaven. In terms of a closer relationship, it was the Snow God Palace. He had already allied with the Snow Girls, and they were very dissatisfied with the Grand Purity and Wuji Heaven. So, Han Fei returned to the Wuji Heaven at full speed. His first destination was naturally the Snow God Palace. Of course, Han Fei could also go to the Martial Emperor's city to investigate. However, if he appeared in the Martial Emperor's city, it meant that the news of his return had been leaked. So Han Fei didn't do that. The Snow God Palace. Bing Chuling was drawing some arrays in the courtyard. All of a sudden, a golden light flashed before her. Who's there? In the blink of an eye, Snowmorn reached the golden light. However, Snowmorn couldn't go any further. When the golden light dissipated, Han Fei appeared before Bing Chuling. Snowmorn was stopped by Han Fei's finger and couldn't go any further. You? Han Fei wasn't in the mood to chat with Bing Chuling at all. He didn't know the real location of the Snow God Palace, and it was inconvenient for him to go in and out even with a nautical globe. That was why he asked for Bing Chuling's help. Han Fei said, "Ask your master to come out. Hurry up." As he spoke, hundreds of arrays were stacked under Han Fei's feet to hide him. What if he ran into Yun Tianhe from the Wuji Heaven like last time? This time, it was still Yun Tianhe and Bei Luochun who had come. They were both true heaven-opening realm experts. Hearing that, Bing Chuling immediately summoned a snowflake. After only 3 seconds, the snow in the courtyard melted into a person. The Snow Girl said, "You're finally willing to show up?" Han Fei said, "What happened while I was away?" The Snow Girl said, "The human race is in chaos." Han Fei's eyelids cramped. "What happened?" The Snow Girl said, "You should know that it's been less than a year and a half since the Imperial Palace was opened." Han Fei said, "Of course I know that, but what does it have to do with the human race being in chaos?" The Snow Girl said simply, "The Grand Pure Wuji Heaven wants to take this opportunity to strangle you, or rather, strangle you. The Grand Pure Wuji Heaven, the Golden Crow, the Dream-Weaving Palace, and the Sword God Palace are restraining the other 4 palaces from moving. The Wuji Heaven took the opportunity to patrol the 13 outer heavens to capture the Inyang Heaven and the Waterwood Heaven. In the end, you've grown too fast and are very extreme. You're not afraid of fighting. Your existence threatens their dominance. And the Imperial Palace is about to open, but they use some method to shake the barbaric abyss. This means that they have the ability to shake the barbaric abyss for a long time, but they just used it at this moment to lure you out." The more Han Fei listened, the angrier his face became. The Wuji Heaven Dog is really cunning. I thought he got nothing last time. It turned out that the purpose of the projection was not to cause trouble at all, but to destroy or to make sacrifices to the outside world in some way to transmit the situation inside to the outside world. In the past, the cages were normal. Even if he could project over, it wouldn't be of much use. Now that the cages of the Inyang Heaven and the Waterwood Heaven were seriously broken, this guy had bad intentions. Why did he trigger this matter at this time? Han Fei already had an idea. Maybe it was because of his performance in the land of King Graveyard and the Martial Emperor's city. The Grand Pure Wuji probably wanted to get rid of him, an unstable factor, before the Imperial Palace opened. And he had the Gemini Divine Technique and an extremely brilliant disguise technique. Ordinary methods couldn't catch him. That was why they had such a bad idea. The so-called attack on the Sword God's palace was most likely to block the Sword God's 4 palaces and prevent the Sword God from helping again. Bei Luochun patrolling the outer sea was probably to threaten the 13 outer heavens and not to cause trouble. On the other hand, it was to deal with the Inyang Heaven and the Waterwood Heaven. Han Fei frowned slightly. How many people from the Wuji Heaven came? Is it only Bei Luochun, or are Yun Tianhe and the other kings here? The Snow Lady said, "They won't come. The Wuji heaven needs an expert to guard it. After all, they are from the inner domain. If the mermaid royal family takes advantage of this, wouldn't the Wuji heaven be destroyed? Therefore, Yun Tianhe must be guarding the Wuji heaven since Bei Luochen is here. As for the other kings, even if they come, we won't know. But a conservative estimate is that 1 or 2 kings will definitely come. In addition to the Wuji heaven, there will also be Golden Crow heaven and Dream-weaving heaven secretly." Han Fei asked, "Will Bei Luochen ask the kings of the 13 outer heavens to help?" The Snow Lady looked at Han Fei. "What do you think?" Han Fei's heart sank. Even a heaven-opening realm expert had come. To be safe, he had to do this. Han Fei asked, "Bei Luochen also came to the ice snow heaven in person?" Seeing the Snow Lady nod slightly, Han Fei smiled coldly. "In that case, don't blame me for being ruthless. Let's go. You won't do anything." Chapter 1935. After learning the basic situation of the chaotic Azure Sea, Han Fei stopped training the soldiers. It was meaningless to train them at this time. Han Fei called Luo Xiaobai and the others out and had a brief discussion. For Han Fei, among the people he brought, Luo Xiaobai was the most intelligent one. Even if other people had high IQs, they might not necessarily listen to what others were saying. At this moment, the 5 of them gathered around the pot and listened to Han Fei's brief explanation. Zhang Xuanyu cursed, "Bastard, you're a heaven-opening expert, yet you're so shameless. Of the top 3 immortal palaces, one is blocking our reinforcements, and the other is waiting for us. It's obvious that they want to get rid of us." Lu Renquang gnawed on the garlic sea cucumber and scolded angrily. "These people are so evil. They're all humans, but they're willing to attack the billions of humans from the Yin-Yang heaven and the Waterwood heaven?" Xia Xiaochan said, "There are countless creatures in this world. It's said that human beings are just one of the thousands of races in the vast ocean. The rise and fall of a race may be nothing in the eyes of the real experts. It was said that during the chaos of the Azure Sea, although many experts died, there were even more ordinary living beings that died. So, there's no guarantee that they'll really make a move. Fei, you have to listen to me. We can't walk right into the trap. You're not the savior of the world. If Bei Luochen really dares to attack the Yin-Yang sky and the Shuamu sky, we'll destroy him after we rise." Lu Renquang nodded quickly. "Yes, their goal is only to kill you. In reality, they won't necessarily slaughter all living beings." Xia Xiaochan nodded. "It's possible. They might divide the forces of the Yin-Yang heaven and the Shuamu heaven, but they might not be so ruthless towards the entire human race." Han Fei took a bite of the lobster and looked at Luo Xiaobai. "What do you think?" Luo Xiaobai came back to herself and said, "Oh, I'm thinking about something." "What?" Everyone fixed their eyes on Luo Xiaobai. Luo Xiaobai asked, "Is Bei Luochen going back to the palace?" Zhang Xuanyu immediately slapped his thigh and said, "There's a 99% chance that it won't happen. How many heaven-opening realm cultivators were there in the chaotic vast ocean? Wasn't the reason why the limitless heaven was able to maintain its position in the top 3 because they had heaven-opening stage powerhouses overseeing it? If he went to the Arch Palace, who would take care of the limitless heavens? Aren't you afraid of being destroyed?" Luo Xiaobai said, "That's right. Bei Luochen didn't go to the Arch Palace, so he came to the outer domain to patrol and try to break into the barbaric abyss. That heaven-opening realm expert from the Supreme Purity Palace did not go to the Imperial Palace, so he brought a few great immortal palaces to attack the Sword God's 4 palaces." Han Fei seemed to understand something. "What do you mean?" Luo Xiaobai said. "You said that the 4 palaces of the Sword God and the immortal palaces led by the Grand Pure Wuji seem to be united, but they are actually against each other. In that case, even without you, they might not allow anyone from the Sword God's 4 palaces to go to the Imperial Palace. Is that possible?" Han Fei quickly nodded. "Yes. The Sword God alone suppressed a sea region and protected the peace of the 4 palaces. The Grand Pure One and the Limitless Sword God were also rather fearful. If there was another, Wang Yijian, would they change their minds? Yes, Han Fei's heart trembled. He had pretended to be Wang Yijian, which was too eye-catching after he appeared. He killed a king with one strike and used a more advanced power. This inevitably made Bei Luoqin and the Grand Pure One feel threatened. If Wang Yijian established a sword palace, wouldn't there be 2 heaven-opening realm cultivators in the sword god's palace? Therefore, now they blocked the sword god's 4 palaces. Maybe they wanted to capture Wang Yijian. Or they could force the sword god's 4 palaces to stop anyone from entering the Arch Palace this time. This would directly cut off the possibility of the next generation of the sword god's 4 palaces becoming kings. However, Han Fei wondered, are they going to regain the absolute dominance of the Grand Pure Wuji Palace? Luo Xiaobai said, let's not think about the Grand Pure Palace's intentions for the sword god's 4 palaces. Let's talk about the timing of their attack. In the past, they didn't do anything for decades, but they chose to do it now. Why? Before anyone could give an answer, Luo Xiaobai said, in fact, they aren't sure if you will go to the Savage Abyss to fight them because of the Yin-Yang Heaven and the Waterwood Heaven. So in the first few decades, they didn't do anything because you had too much time to choose. If they can't find you, they may slaughter some people, but if they kill all of them, won't the heaven-opening realm cultivator's Taoist heart be clouded? Xia Xiaochan said, speaking of clouded Taoist heart, if Han Fei doesn't go, will he? Xia Xiaochan looked at Han Fei. She wasn't sure because after getting used to Han Fei's Taoist heart, everyone could realize the importance of the Taoist heart. Han Fei was silent for a while. Maybe, maybe not. Han Fei guessed that he would have to think about it if he needed to. The reason why he wasn't sure was that his feelings for the Yin-Yang Heaven and the Waterwood Heaven weren't that deep. Of course, it wasn't that he didn't have any feelings for them. He had contributed the most to the development of the Yin-Yang Heaven and the Waterwood Heaven. Besides, he came out with the hopes of the hundreds of millions of creatures of the Yin-Yang Heaven and the Waterwood Heaven. If they didn't see him at the last moment, how disappointed would they be? Luo Xiaobai was silent for a while and didn't dwell on this question. Instead, she continued, they paid such a big price not just to let Han Fei's Taoist heart be clouded. They chose to take action at this time, probably because they also need time to break the cage of the Savage Abyss. And this time, I'm afraid, will take more than a year. Why? If the Savage Abyss opens at the last moment when the Imperial Palace opens. Luo Xiaobai looked at Han Fei. If that's the case, will you go or not? Han Fei, everyone, wow, Zhang Xuanyu couldn't help but gasp. So that's how it is. This old thing is very evil. So, this is his purpose? He's planning to wait for the Yin-Yang Heaven to come out just to prevent Han Fei from going to the Imperial Palace with us. Xia Xiaochan was speechless. You're too shameless. They don't care whether you go to the Imperial Palace or not. Zhang Xuanyu, Lu Renquang patted Zhang Xuanyu on the shoulder and said, brother, accept the reality. Zhang Xuanyu, Han Fei, on the other hand, pondered for a long time, and then the corners of his mouth twitched a few times. He cursed, son of a b****, why didn't I think of this? There must be a time limit for the opening of the Imperial Palace. If I go there late, I probably won't be able to enter. Anyway, Bei Luoqin won't go, so it doesn't matter to him. If I don't go to the Savage Abyss, he will divide the Yin-Yang Heaven and the Waterwood Heaven. Anyway, he won't lose anything, and he can occupy the 2 immortal palaces for free. Damn it. Luo Xiaobai shook her head. No, if you don't go to the Savage Abyss, he will definitely slaughter all the experts of the Yin-Yang Heaven and the Waterwood Heaven to force you out. At that time, you will be in a dilemma, and it will be difficult for you to rationally control the overall situation. Everyone couldn't help but look at Han Fei. The pressure was too great, and they couldn't help but sympathize with Han Fei. Although Han Fei was really strong, he hadn't reached the heaven-opening realm. Faced with such a choice, except for Luo Xiaobai, no one else could make a choice. After a long time, Han Fei took a breath and said, forget it. After all, there is still a year and a half. There is still more than a year before the opening of the Imperial Palace, and naturally more than a year before the opening of the Savage Abyss. They were all outstanding, and their calculations were very precise. Whether I go or not, How can I let them take it calmly? Do they want to force me? I'll give them face. Luo Xiaobai asked. What are you going to do? Han Fei grinned. Just wait and see. After eating and drinking, Han Fei turned back into Wang Yijian, his white hair fluttering in the wind, his body broken by the sword, and his temperament was feminine. He chose to go to the savage abyss first. Since Bei Luochun came here to destroy the savage abyss, he would most likely wait for him. So Han Fei was not afraid of him, and he had the golden light body technique, so he didn't have to be afraid of Bei Luochun. One day later, Han Fei made sure that he was in his peak state before he used the golden light body technique and rushed to the center of the savage abyss. Han Fei's behavior would inevitably expose the golden light body technique, or, in other words, the golden light body technique would be used by Wang Yijian. After a few hours, Han Fei subconsciously pinched his fingers, stopped moving forward, and stood still in the vortex storm. Han Fei took back the 9-palace ruler of destiny, and the ruler moved and soon fell on the ominous hexagram. Although he tried to go to the ominous hexagram several times, he still failed. No way. The corners of Han Fei's mouth curled up slightly, and he flashed 100,000 kilometers away. All of a sudden, Han Fei saw a pair of eyes meeting his in midair. Han Fei had seen this gaze more than once. Last time in the savage abyss, he and Bei Luochun looked at each other once, but at that time he was Han Fei. But now he was Wang Yijian. Similarly, with a quick glance, Bei Luochun's figure disappeared. As the saying goes, when enemies meet, they are especially fierce. Han Fei used the identity of Wang Yijian to kill Bei Xianbing in the Medicine King Heaven, which made Bei Luochun furious. Now that he saw Wang Yijian walking into the trap, he had no reason not to come. In just 1 second, Bei Luochun appeared 200,000 kilometers away from Han Fei. At this speed, in fact, Bei Luochun and Han Fei's speed was not much different. However, Han Fei's golden light body technique was not the limit. When Bei Luochun was 100,000 kilometers away, Han Fei immediately said, "Okay, let's stop there. Otherwise, there's nothing to talk about." However, how could Bei Luochun listen to Han Fei? He came with all his strength, and Han Fei disdainfully flashed with a golden light and retreated 200,000 kilometers away. Bei Luochun was stunned and searched for a while, only to find that Wang Yijian had appeared more than 200,000 kilometers away. This speed was probably not inferior to his. Han Fei said, "Wuji, you're not qualified to catch up with me." Bei Luochun naturally didn't believe it. His speed burst out, but after 3 seconds, Han Fei didn't move at all. With a flash of golden light, he disappeared hundreds of thousands of kilometers away. Bei Luochun thought, what kind of combat skill is this? Chapter 1936. Bei Luochun wasn't stupid. After chasing for a few seconds, he stopped. His purpose here was to deal with Han Fei. He didn't know what Wang Yijian's purpose was. Moreover, wasn't Wang Yijian at the Sword God Palace? Bei Luochun stood in the air. His voice fell into Han Fei's ears from over 200,000 miles away. "Wang Yijian, how dare you appear in front of me? Even if you have a miraculous movement technique, do you think I can't catch up to you if I don't hesitate to sacrifice my capital?" Han Fei said indifferently, "You can try." Han Fei's voice was indifferent and straightforward. He looked as if he was going to beat him up. Bei Luochun's eyelids twitched. "Why are you here? Since you're not here to challenge me or stop me from attacking the barbaric abyss, then are you here for Han Fei?" Han Fei crossed his arms and raised his head high as he looked at Bei Luochun with a disdainful expression. "You besieged my sword god's palace and attacked the yin-yang sky from the outside. Do you really think you're invincible because you've conquered the human race?" Bei Luochun sneered. "It's the Grand Purity Palace that blocked your sword god palace, right? What does that have to do with the Wuji heaven?" Han Fei said, "You and I both know. Why are you putting on an act?" Bei Luochun snorted. "Then when you killed Black Ice that day, were you also protecting Han Fei?" Han Fei's expression was cold. "Yes, so what?" Bei Luochun's aura shook. Although he was furious, there was nothing he could do. As he said, even if Wang Yijian's movement technique was amazing, if he really used his full speed, he might be able to take him down. But the price would be Bei Luochun said with a straight face. Speak. Don't tell me you're here to chat with me. Why are you here? Han Fei's gaze was cold. I'm here to tell you something. Listen carefully. Wuji heaven, if you want to touch the yin-yang heaven, don't blame me for being ruthless. From today onwards, the human world will be in chaos. The 36 profound heavens will be in chaos. I hope the Wuji heaven can handle it. When Bei Luochun heard this, he couldn't help but laugh. Han Fei, you brat, you didn't even dare to say anything. I came with you instead. This is the first time this old man has heard such ruthless words. This old man wants to see how a newly promoted little king like him can stir up trouble in the world. Han Fei remained unmoved. He maintained his cold expression and said, Oh, by the way, Wang Yijian, am also one of the people who have thrown the world into chaos. Oomph. All of a sudden, Han Fei felt that a creepy black moon rose from the sea. Swish, Han Fei's face slightly changed. He felt that the air within 100,000 kilometers became sticky. Bei Luochun could launch an attack from such a distance? Are Emperor Realm cultivators so powerful? In the blink of an eye, Han Fei activated the golden light movement technique and began to escape. While he was escaping, he found that the black moon was glowing with a hazy yellow light. Wherever the yellow light shone, a barrier seemed to be born. However, Han Fei didn't expect such an unexpected change either, so he jumped 300,000 kilometers with the golden leap. However, the distance he actually traveled was only 60,000 miles. Hiss, Han Fei gasped. The heaven-opening realm was indeed extraordinary. He thought that he could ignore the heaven-opening realm cultivators with the golden light movement technique. But now it seemed that he had underestimated his opponent. Bei Luochun came extremely fast. After all, for a strong master like Bei Luochun, his speed had already reached the upper limit. However, just as the old tortoise had said, they would not do so. Han Fei only ran 60,000 kilometers with the golden light leap, which gave Bei Luochun an opportunity. At the moment when Han Fei's golden light flashed, Bei Luochun arrived. He didn't know where Han Fei was going, so Bei Luochun only chased Han Fei to the place where he had just fled. At this point, the two were 60,000 kilometers apart. Bei Luochun laughed loudly. Wang Yijian, do you really think I want to listen to your nonsense? Black moon void sky, leeches out of the four seas. Within 100,000 kilometers, a layer of strange black fog descended, and a pair of scarlet eyes aimed at Han Fei. In the blink of an eye, the pair of scarlet eyes had locked onto Han Fei for a brief moment. Han Fei felt his body stiffen. Immediately, Han Fei thought, this space can't be blocked. Swish! Another golden light flashed, and Han Fei broke through the black curtain in an instant. However, because of the black moon, Han Fei's speed was still not fast enough, and he only appeared 30,000 kilometers away from the black curtain. This distance was not a distance for Bei Luochun at all. However, Han Fei did not panic. Behind him, the shattered sword appeared in his hand. Celestial chi and ferocious chi surged, and the sword fell like the great Tao. Like a flash in the sky, the void shattered layer by layer as it headed straight for Bei Luochun. Bei Luochun had long known that Wang Yijian had immortal spiritual chi and fierce chi, but he hadn't seen how he used them. At this moment, he was shocked. This sword contained both the great Tao and boundless killing intent, as if an immortal and a demon were in the same body. Bei Luochun could almost imagine this kind of power. Among the Pioneer Sea Realm cultivators, there were only a handful who could take it and survive. But Bei Luochun was a Pioneer Sea Realm cultivator after all. He waved his hand, and a black moon instantly disappeared into the void. Facing this sword, Bei Luochun shouted, "You're a Pioneer Sea Realm cultivator. You've mastered the power of the Pioneer Sea Realm in advance. You're still a Pioneer Sea Realm cultivator, after all." BM, the immortal spiritual chi burst out, and the boundless void shattered. However, when it collided with the black moon, it couldn't move an inch forward, and the sword aura shattered as if it would disintegrate at any time. Seeing the pair of scarlet eyes continue to look at him, Han Fei used his full strength while he could still move and directly increased the speed of the golden light movement technique to the fastest, that is, the speed of light. At that moment, Han Fei saw his spiritual sea and everything in his previous life flash before his eyes. But Han Fei clearly knew that these were his memories, his spiritual world. But in addition to these, Han Fei saw a faint blue color. Han Fei's heart skipped a beat. It was the River of Time. Having experienced the River of Time, he naturally recognized it immediately. In addition to the flowing River of Time, Han Fei also saw a void, which was dotted with starlight, like a sea of stars. In addition to the sea of stars, there was also a white hole, which led to an unknown place. In addition to the white hole, there was also a staircase, which led to an unknown place. Han Fei couldn't help but be stunned. In the extreme speed, he seemed to be able to choose where he wanted to go. However, Han Fei had no idea what this choice meant. Han Fei had no idea what the meaning of the white hole, the sea of stars, and the staircase was. The only thing that Han Fei was familiar with was the River of Time. At this moment, although Han Fei's thoughts seemed to have stopped for a moment, he could feel that he was rushing toward the sea of stars and the void. Han Fei gritted his teeth. He was not strong enough now. These places might have big secrets. If he wanted to come, he would have plenty of opportunities in the future. There was no need to rush at this critical moment. So Han Fei rushed into the River of Time without hesitation. Although Han Fei was not very proficient in the Great Tao of Time, Great Path of Time, Nino had grown up. Every once in a while, he would discuss the secret uses of various time techniques with Nian. But it was also the first time that Han Fei entered the River of Time. Nian also mentioned the River of Time. She said that it was like entering the River of Time. He couldn't be attracted by things outside of time, nor could he swim along time. The former was easy to go to unknown times and places, which would attract the attention of the heavenly Tao. But along time, it was easy to get lost. Therefore, Han Fei would only come in for a moment. Pop! The moment Han Fei rushed into the River of Time, his body suddenly showed signs of exhaustion. He felt that his vitality was being pulled by time. Immediately, Han Fei activated the Great Path of Time to resist the power of the River of Time to erase vitality. At the same time, he reversed the flow of the Great Path of Time around him, resisting the power of time so that he would not deviate from the current world. After entering for at most 1 second, Han Fei rushed out of the River of Time. Seeing that his body was mixed with some Great Path of Time, which was a sign that he had not returned to normal time, Han Fei disappeared on the spot with a thought. When Han Fei came out again, he glanced around and saw the scene of the divine aura collapsing and the void collapsing 600,000 kilometers away. Bei Luochen, on the other hand, looked at where Han Fei was indifferently and a little surprised. How did this guy do it? He was stuck at the limit of speed and came out. Of course, Han Fei didn't stop. Golden light appeared on his body, and he continued to escape. Even if Bei Luochen chased after him, he couldn't catch up with him, unless he could keep running at the limit of speed. Above the sea, the black moon dissipated and the scarlet eyes disappeared. Bei Luochen took a deep look in the direction where Han Fei left. He murmured, "This guy's strength is only half a step into the sky-opening realm. He's a disaster after all." Sword God Palace. Millions of kilometers away, Han Fei appeared. As soon as he appeared, the heavenly awakening divine technique fell on him, and his stiff body recovered. What a terrifying spiritual beast. Black Moon Void Sky Leech, Wuji Wheel. They're really terrifying. Han Fei twisted his body, and the nautical panorama appeared in his hand. As the panorama rotated, a golden light flashed, and Han Fei disappeared without a trace. Got a fishing /book/57885/. Chapter 1937. Bei Luochen didn't dare to leave the desolate abyss after Han Fei and Bei Luochen fought. He was afraid that this was Wang Yijian's ploy to lure him away. Thus, Bei Luochen summoned the nearest peerless heavenly king and asked him to relay the news. About 4 hours later, less than half a day later. Avalon of 5 elements. Above the immortal palace. Gongjian was drinking with a middle-aged man. Gongjian said, "Brother Chao Feng, if the peerless heavenly king can quell the chaos in the desolate abyss, force Han Fei to show himself and kill him, peace will return to the 36 immortal palaces. We can even take down the 4-sword god palaces." The middle-aged man's lips curled up slightly. With the patriarch personally taking action, Han Fei won't be able to escape if he shows himself. What I'm afraid of is that he'll give up on the yin-yang heaven and waterwood heaven. Gongjian's face darkened. We can't rule out that possibility. He's ferocious and powerful, but he doesn't do things according to plan. It's hard to figure out what he's thinking. The yin-yang heaven returned for revenge. Wasn't it Han Fei who caused trouble for the past few decades? Gongjian cupped his hands at the middle-aged man. "Brother Chao Feng, I've had to trouble you during this period. But with you around, the Avalon of 5 elements will be safe. I don't have to worry about you anymore." The middle-aged man laughed. "Brother Gong, don't be frightened by that kid. Let him jump around. Let's see how long he can jump around after the yin-yang heaven returns. As for the safety of the Avalon of 5 elements, if that kid Han Fei really dares to come, I, Li Chao Feng, am very lucky. I'll kill him, take his resources, and search his spirit. Isn't that perfect?" The two of them looked at each other and laughed. They raised their cups and drank together. As a matter of fact, as soon as the wine entered their mouths, before they could even swallow it, the void suddenly shattered, and a ray of golden light rushed in. "Who's there? How dare you barge into the Avalon of 5 elements?" When the golden light appeared, Han Fei's figure appeared in the 5 elements immortal palace. Gongjian's expression changed drastically when he saw that it was Han Fei. The scene of Han Fei killing Yu Ming was still vivid in his mind. Although he had bragged to Li Chao Feng that he was no match for Li Chao Feng at that time, but he was able to escape calmly. In reality, who would know that he was also like a stray dog at that time? Gongjian shouted, "Not good. Brother Chao Feng, this is Han Fei." Li Chao Feng was taken aback as well. Damn it. He was just talking about this kid, and this kid came. Li Chao Feng grinned hideously. "Han Fei, there's a way out for you, but you barge into hell instead. Come and accept your death." After a moment of shock, Li Chao Feng became excited. He was actually not weak in the Wuji sky. He was even stronger than Bei Xianbing, but he did not have a heaven creation realm patriarch like Bei Xianbing. Otherwise, how could he let Bei Xianbing stand up for him all the time? As a matter of fact, Li Chao Feng stretched out his hand, and a 3-meter-long fish-slaying knife appeared in his hand. With a roar, a purple scorpion that was over 1,000 feet long entered his body. Above Li Chao Feng's head, a purple cone shadow was ready to attack. On both sides of his body, there were 2 purple lights, which were the special effects of fusing with spiritual beasts. Li Chao Feng was not stupid. If Han Fei dared to barge into the Avalon of 5 elements, how could he be weak? Han Fei must have felt that even if Gongjian used all the power of the Avalon of 5 elements, he would not be a match for him. Li Chao Feng knew very well how powerful Gongjian was. With the help of the Immortal Palace, Han Fei's power would not be weaker than his. Therefore, Li Chao Feng knew that he was the variable. Because he had come to the Avalon of 5 elements with Bei Luo Chun, Han Fei could not have known in advance. His purpose here was to prepare for emergencies when the barbaric abyss broke. Li Chao Feng shouted, "Brother Gong, seal this place. Don't leave the 5 elements formation. Let's take down this kid together." Before Li Chao Feng said anything, Gongjian had already done so. Gongjian raised 2 fingers, and 5 pillars of fire, red, yellow, green, blue, and white, appeared in the 5 directions of the Immortal Palace. The moment the pillars of fire were ignited, Han Fei took a long breath and said to himself, "If I hadn't searched for a long time, I would have arrived a long time ago." Wuji, the game starts now. Han Fei, who was already crazy, had reached his strongest state at this moment. In addition, Han Fei's glabella split open, and the invincible eye appeared. All of a sudden, Han Fei's strength was so strong that his battle suit began to vibrate. Roar! As Han Fei roared, A giant celestial body that was more than 200 meters tall appeared behind him. As soon as the avatar appeared, it was ferocious and murderous. Han Fei chuckled. I didn't expect that there would be two kings guarding this place. It seems that I'm indeed very lucky. Gongzhan, I'll let you escape 21 years ago. Let's see if you can escape this time. Avatar? Li Chaofeng gasped. Maybe others didn't know about avatars, but he certainly didn't. However, it was impossible for him not to know. Anyone who knew of his king would know of the existence of the Dharmakaya. This was an elusive superpower. The power of the avatar might be even stronger than that of the original body. And this avatar came from a martial emperor city. It was ferocious and might not be easy to deal with. Li Chaofeng shouted, Brother Gong, leave Han Fei to me. You lock the avatar with the 5 elements formation. Gongzhan's face turned green. F*CK. Leave this thing to me? This is the first time I've seen this thing. Look at its ferocious face. I know it's not easy to fight. Besides, Li Chaofeng chose so quickly. Obviously, he didn't want to face the avatar. However, Li Chaofeng had never fought with Han Fei, so he didn't know how terrifying Han Fei was. If he had known that Han Fei was Wang Yijian, and that Han Fei's combat power could enter the top 10 of the Sea Expansion realm, he would have begged to fight with the avatar. However, in this hurry, neither of them had time to react. They fought with all their strength. Gongzhan ordered 5 elements and phenomena, life and death strange gate, 5 ultimate divine fire formation. Li Chaofeng's attack was not as complicated as Gongzhan's, because he didn't have time to prepare for Han Fei. Therefore, the purple light behind Li Chaofeng flashed, and a poisonous stinger flashed like a star, trying to penetrate Han Fei directly. But Han Fei grabbed this poisonous stinger with one hand, just like catching Xieyu's arrow. However, when fighting with Xieyou, Han Fei didn't open the invincible eye. In this battle, he wanted to win quickly and kill all of them, so Han Fei used the invincible eye. Han Fei, who had unleashed his full power, naturally wouldn't be repelled by a poisonous stinger. Li Chaofeng was shocked. How could Han Fei catch his poisonous stinger barehanded? But then he laughed. Han Fei, you dare to take the poisonous stinger of my purple dragon demonic scorpion? God wants to kill you. Han Fei's right hand was quickly dyed purple, and in the purple poison, black silk threads were trying to rush to Han Fei's body. However, the corners of Han Fei's mouth curled slightly, and he smiled faintly. Poison? Who do you think you are? Crack, as Han Fei clenched his fist, the whole shadow of the scorpion tail was full of cracks, and the purple poison on Han Fei's hand was rapidly fading. Li Chaofeng was horrified. How is this possible? At the moment when the whole scorpion tail collapsed, the 2 purple lights on Li Chaofeng's body attacked Han Fei's, Dantian respectively. The sharp metal chi had the power to penetrate Han Fei's body. At this time, a blue light appeared in front of Han Fei, and he grabbed with his left hand, and a blade of time was pulled out from it. He slashed out and directly cut off these 2 stingers. Oh, 6-pole thunder knife, cut. Li Chaofeng was horrified. He thought that Han Fei was resisting the poison with a strong will, so he needed help. Li Chaofeng jumped up and slashed with the fish-slaying knife. The blade fell, and wherever the blade passed, the void was torn like paper. With the giant space blade and the rich lightning, he dashed at Han Fei. Before the knife arrived, the 6 layers of lightning had fallen, and even Han Fei felt a little numb. But Han Fei didn't care at all. He stretched out 2 fingers. The great path returns to 1. Swish, Han Fei turned into a golden light and suddenly appeared in front of Li Chaofeng in the next second. This time, Han Fei's attack was like Xia Shaochan stabbing a knife. The great path returns to 1 directly stabbed into Li Chaofeng's Dantian. BM Li Chaofeng had never thought that in his life, the outcome of a battle between pioneer Sea Realm cultivators would be decided by the first move. The battle between the 2 was as fast as a flash of lightning. However, he had already been defeated. Gongzhan's formation had just been activated, and before he had time to fight with the celestial body, he was shocked to find that Li Chaofeng had exploded. However, Li Chaofeng, whose combat power was superior to his, didn't even manage to block his attack and was beaten to death. How strong was this Han Fei? At the moment Li Chaofeng exploded, he turned into thousands of blood shadows and tried to break the void. But Han Fei was already prepared. For formations appeared and locked the void. What followed was the void lines. When the void lines constantly pierced the blood shadows and soul bodies in the void, Li Chaofeng's death was already a foregone conclusion. At this moment, Han Fei looked up at Gong Zhan and smiled slightly. The moment you failed to ambush me, you shouldn't have stayed in the Avalon of 5 elements. Unfortunately, you don't understand me. Third update. Please vote for me. I'm not in a good state recently. Everyone, please bear with me into this chapter. Chapter 1938. Gong Zhan had a mental breakdown. He had never thought that Han Fei would come to him at this moment. This was a slap to Bei Luochen's face. But that was exactly what had happened. Li Chaofeng had never thought that he would die here. Seeing that Li Chaofeng's soul was collapsing and being destroyed at a terrifying speed, Gong Zhan knew that Li Chaofeng was doomed. Roar! At this moment, the 5 elements divine fire transformed into a 5-colored knife and was attacking Han Fei's firmament body. However, the firmament body had a body too. It followed its master. With a thought, the firmament body condensed a pair of axes and chopped down furiously. The axes were enhanced by the great Tao of gravity. As the saying went, one powerful man could defeat 10 skilled men. Although the giant axes were blocked by an invisible barrier, the 100 Battles' divine hammer technique turned into axe strikes and continued to strike. Dong, dong, dong. In the sky above the main city of the Avalon of 5 elements, power vibrated. Everyone raised their heads and looked up. They thought to themselves, what exactly is happening in the sky? Ordinary people couldn't understand, but many venerable experts in the Avalon of 5 elements were shocked. What was happening in the Immortal Palace? In the 5 Elements sect, the highest school in the Avalon of 5 elements, several young men looked surprised. Someone exclaimed, Ziliu, is something happening in the Immortal Palace? The guy called Ziliu was one of the 5 elements disciples. His face was grave, thinking that this was a sign of a battle. The power of the tremors had spread from the Immortal Palace to the outside world. How powerful must a person be to do that? At a time like this, even getting close to the Immortal Palace would be crushed to death by the terrifying power, let alone taking a look. Ziliu had an idea. I'll go and take a look. You guys stay here. After saying that, this guy disappeared. A moment later, he emerged from a place far away and murmured, how can an expert who can break into the Immortal Palace be an ordinary person? He has to leave since he's a 5 elements disciple. In the Immortal Palace, Gong Zhan knew that Han Fei was here to kill, so he didn't expect Han Fei to let him go. At this moment, he couldn't care less. A 5-colored ring of fire suddenly emerged from the Immortal Palace, surrounded Gong Zhan, and sank into his body. Han Fei felt that the power of the entire Avalon of 5 elements was pressing down on the firmament body. No matter how strong the firmament celestial body was, it would not be able to forcefully break through this restrictive force. With a thought, a drop of infinity water in front of him was nailed to Gong Zhan, who was in the outbreak period like a nail. Roar! At that moment, a 5 elements dragonfish burst out. The dragonfish spewed strange flames from its mouth, but it couldn't stop the piercing of the infinity water. In the end, it swatted its tail forcefully. Explode! Rumble! The strength of the infinity water depended on Han Fei's strength. Therefore, when the infinity water exploded, a destructive power broke out in the fairy palace. Bang, 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 ka, ka, ka. 2 of the 5 fire pillars of the 5 elements Immortal Palace had been destroyed. Hundreds of cracks appeared in the small world. Han Fei couldn't help but be surprised. He didn't expect the small world to be so sturdy that it could withstand such a violent explosion. However, the explosion of the infinity water had destroyed all of Gong Zhan's means of controlling the firmament doppelganger. Li Chaofeng, who was on the verge of death, ultimately failed to survive the terrifying explosion. Rumble! In the sky above the Avalon of 5 elements, a blood-colored crack appeared in the sky, and blood rain poured down. It was a typical sign that a king had died. Someone was dumbfounded. Who died? Someone was shocked. Our king has died. Many venerables finally realized that something was wrong and were ready to leave the Avalon of 5 elements. A king had suddenly died in the five elements immortal palace. Any normal person would think that Gongxian had died. Zilu, who had just run out, was sweating profusely. A look of fear appeared on his face. Teacher has fallen. At this moment, many kings in the immortal palaces in the entire outer sea sensed it. The status of the pioneer sea realm in the chaotic ocean was like that of the venerable realm in the yin-yang heaven. Many people could sense the death of a pioneer sea realm expert. The kings of the immortal palaces were all stunned. What had happened in recent years? The pioneer sea realm experts had died one after another. Why did another person die all of a sudden today? The demons in the outer sea and the humans at the bottom of the sea were all surprised. A sea demon looked at the sky. Humans, the internal strife has begun. An elderly human sneered. The 36 mysterious guys exist only in name. Let's see what happens this time. Bei Luochan held a broken jade slip in his hand and looked at the trace of blood in the sky. His face was ashen. Li Chaofeng was dead. Another pioneer sea realm expert had died. How long had it been? Who could accept the death of two pioneer sea realm experts in just a few decades? The Avalon of Five Elements. Buzz, Bei Luochan's body moved, leaving a projection behind while his real body headed straight for the Avalon of Five Elements. He knew that Wang Yijian would retaliate, but he didn't expect that Wang Yijian's retaliation would be so precise and come so fast. What would happen if he allowed a powerful expert like Wang Yijian to go on a killing spree outside? Who would be able to stop him? However, Bei Luochan did not have much hope. Even if he rushed to the Avalon of Five Elements at full speed, the battle would be over by the time he arrived. Nevertheless, he still had to go. At this moment, Gongxian's five-element dragonfish was blown to pieces. Gongxian was dripping with blood. With a golden flash, Han Fei appeared in front of him. But as soon as Han Fei appeared, five-colored mystic light burst out of Gongxian's body and rushed at Han Fei. However, Han Fei didn't look at the five-colored mystic light, but pierced Gongxian with his sword. They were both pierced by the Dao Convergent sword, but Gongxian didn't die so easily, although he couldn't defeat Han Fei. Although he was no match for Han Fei, this was his immortal palace after all. An invisible array in the immortal palace lit up, and Gongxian's body recovered. Han Fei sneered. "I'll smash you." The firmament body was like a violent Hercules, and the giant axe in its hand never stopped. Clang, 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 the 100-array divine hammer smashed thousands of times, and Han Fei controlled the infinity water to drill into the array. As for Han Fei, although he wanted to kill Gongxian with the divine demon-killing intent, that was his trump card, and also a cover for Wang Yijian's identity. Therefore, Han Fei also joined the battle. He grabbed the embroidery needle and attacked with the Monkey King 3,000 strikes. At this moment, the embroidery needle was like a divine giant stick. Every time it struck, there would be overlapping shadows. The full power of the sea-quelling bizarre treasure was fully unleashed. Puff! Gongxian, facing the strong attack of Han Fei, the firmament body, and the infinity water, couldn't defeat them even though he could use most of the power of the five elements immortal palace. He vomited blood. Crack, 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 the small world was about to collapse. As a last resort, Gongxian decisively gave up this void. He intended to directly descend to the immortal palace. At the moment of life and death, Gongxian shouted, "Han Fei, if you're not afraid of the hellfire, destroy the entire Avalon of Five Elements." Crack! At this moment, the void shattered. In the sky above the Avalon of Five Elements, the Five Elements immortal palace appeared in everyone's sight. Gongxian tried to descend the immortal palace. However, the firmament body blocked the immortal palace and madly rose to the sky, not letting the immortal palace descend. Under the shocked gazes of countless people, Han Fei said coldly, "In the battle of the Five Elements immortal palace, the dogs of Tai Chi Wuji should be killed. I, Han Fei, am the king of the world. How can I allow you to harm me? Kill!" Supreme yin-yang wheel. In the distant sky, a huge yin-yang diagram came crashing down, and the sound of something being torn apart could be heard. This time, it was a real battle between the Yin Great Path and the Five Elements Great Path. In fact, the strength of the Great Path in the Pioneer Sea realm couldn't be seen because of the different mastery of the Great Path. But the power that Han Fei burst out at this moment was too strong, and it completely crushed Gong Zhan. Therefore, the Five Elements barrier couldn't resist the impact of the supreme Yin wheel and shattered. However, at the last moment, Gong Zhan roared, "Han Fei, even if I die, I'll destroy your Taoist heart. I'll explode." Han Fei secretly cursed that this guy was crazy. Gong Zhan was going to bury the billions of people in the entire Avalon of Five Elements with him in order to create a hellfire not in his heart. But how could Han Fei let him do that? Blue lights intertwined in front of him, and with a flash of golden light, Han Fei and Gong Zhan disappeared from the Immortal Palace at the same time. The next moment, 600,000 miles away from the Avalon of Five Elements, Han Fei's golden blood was dripping. Boom! In the sky above, another bright red crack that pierced through the heavens appeared. Hiss! This time, countless people were shocked. Another king has fallen. On the snowy day, the Snow Lady's hands trembled. Han Fei's appearance caused such a big commotion. Which family did he kill? In the 10,000 poison sky, Huang Jie looked up at the sky and murmured, "Chaos, chaos. The human race is going to be in chaos." I wonder if Han Fei is a lucky star or a jinx. Bei Luochen was still on his way. Seeing another king fall, he knew that something had happened to Gong Zhan. It seemed that even with the help of the Immortal Palace, Gong Zhan couldn't stop Wang Yijian for long. An hour later, Han Fei reappeared in the sky above the Avalon of Five Elements. At that moment, hundreds of Han Fei's projections descended on all the important places in the Avalon of Five Elements. Then, Han Fei's voice shook the heavens and earth. He said, "My name is Han Fei, the current king of the human race. I want to destroy the Tai Ching sect, punish the Wuji sect, and unify the 36 Immortal Palaces. In the Avalon of Five Elements, Gong Zhan is unjust and takes the side of the evildoer. I will clean him up." Chapter 1939. After entering Gong Zhan's and Li Chaofeng's origin seas, Han Fei had obtained countless resources. Basically, he had taken everything he could. If he had to calculate the amount of resources, Han Fei roughly estimated that according to his own standards, it should be enough to fill the source world with a radius of 30,000 kilometers. Therefore, Han Fei still felt that it was not enough and continued to plunder the Avalon of Five Elements. Anyway, the Avalon of Five Elements would most likely be divided up later, so it was not too much to scrape a layer of oil from it first. In addition to resources, what made Han Fei even happier was that the Demon Purification Pod had absorbed more than 7,000 strands of chaotic energy from the Two's origin seas. This number really made Han Fei overjoyed. When he killed Yu Meng and the Crazy Four Kings, he didn't get so much chaotic energy. Among them, more than 4,000 strands were from Gong Zhan. Is it because of the Immortal Palace? In addition, Han Fei unexpectedly obtained a new sea-quelling painting. This painting was about the same size as the one he had. However, the density of the spiritual qi inside was higher than his own. After all, this was the chaotic ocean, not the yin-yang heaven. Having no time to study the sea-quelling painting, Han Fei turned around and went to the Five Elements Immortal Palace. Like the yin-yang palace, the belly of the palace was a place where many forces gathered. Here, Han Fei felt that the spiritual energy here was filled with a large amount of chaotic energy. If he were given 3 to 5 years to absorb here, he would probably be able to absorb thousands of strands of chaotic energy. Unfortunately, he didn't have that time. Han Fei could only sigh. These people didn't even know they were sitting on a mountain of treasures. If the Yin-Yang Palace had these forces, his strength would definitely have increased. After doing all this, Han Fei's projection returned one after another. Han Fei roughly glanced at the resources he brought back. They were worth about 500 million ultra-quality spiritual stones. After all, they were plundered from the entire Avalon of Five Elements. If it weren't for the lack of time, he could have plundered more than 1 billion. But now, if Bei Luochen hadn't gotten lost, he should be almost there. Then, With a flash of golden light, Han Fei flew away. Han Fei left, but the people of the Avalon of Five Elements were dumbfounded. Who knew what had happened? Even the Immortal Palace had been forced out of the Avalon of Five Elements after 2 consecutive king deaths. Their king was killed by Han Fei on the spot, and the latter still clamored for revenge afterward. Han Fei's way of doing things terrified many people in the Avalon of Five Elements. Someone exclaimed in horror, "Devil, Han Fei of the Avengers is a big devil." Someone was horrified. Demon Han killed the king of the Avalon of Five Elements and robbed our resources. How dare such a ferocious demon call himself the king of humans? Someone hurriedly said, "Lower your voice. I don't know if Demon Han has left or not." Someone was already crying bitterly. Our king has fallen just like that? What about the Supreme Purity Palace? What about limitless heaven? Who's going to punish this demon? However, the death of a powerful individual was a huge matter, and only powerful individuals could participate in it. Among the honorables who had yet to leave the Avalon of Five Elements, there were some who were tempted. After Gong Zhan's death, with the various great techniques and absolute arts of the Avalon of Five Elements still in the Immortal Palace? If it weren't for the fear of Han Fei, the Immortal Palace would have been full of venerables. Ordinary people, on the other hand, only knew that the king had fallen and that the sky had fallen. This made them anxious and uneasy. Unfortunately, ordinary people had no idea what had happened. Apart from Han Fei shouting that he was the king of humans, no one else said anything. After that, no one else said anything. All ordinary people could do was wait for someone to say something to calm them down, or at least let them know what had happened and where they should go. Of course, while waiting for someone to take charge of the situation, most people chose to cultivate. After the death of 2 kings, there was a huge amount of King's Taoist rhymes in this place, and the spiritual energy in the air was much denser. Sitting cross-legged in the rain of blood, one had a high chance of breaking through. After about the time it took for an incense stick to burn, a venerable saw that there was no movement and climbed up the Immortal Palace. But when he looked, there was nothing at all. The moment he climbed up the Immortal Palace, someone shouted, "Get out of the way! This is the Immortal Palace of Five Elements. How can ordinary venerables climb it?" Buzz Ziliu, who had run far away, ran back when he saw that someone could climb up the Immortal Palace. Ziliu shouted, "I am Huang Ziliu, a disciple of the Five Elements sect. My master died in the hands of the demon Han Fei. But dragons cannot be without a leader. The Immortal Palace of Five Elements is not a place that anyone can step foot in. I will stay here and wait for the powerful fighters from the Wuji heavens to uphold justice." Regardless of personality, the Five Elements sect's disciples were not weak in terms of strength. Otherwise, they would not have become a Five Elements sect disciple. Therefore, when Huang Ziliu appeared and took charge, the others did not immediately climb up the Immortal Palace because they did not know the situation and they did not have a legitimate reason to do so. After the time it took for half an incense stick to burn, the void broke open and Bei Luochen finally arrived. Huang Ziliu had some experience. The moment he saw Bei Luochen, he was stunned. Immediately after, he thought of something and immediately shouted, "Your Majesty, please uphold justice for my master." That demon Han Fei, in his madness, broke into the Avalon of Five Elements and killed my master, Gong Zhan. As a result, the Avalon of Five Elements is without a leader. Although I am a disciple of the Five Elements sect, I have not been able to take charge of the Immortal Palace. Your Majesty, please help me. Huang Ziliu was tearing up. Those who did not know better would think that he was heartbroken. However, how could Bei Luochen not know what he was thinking after reading between the lines? Bei Luochen said, "You said that Han Fei broke into the Avalon of Five Elements? Not Wang Yijian?" Wang Yijian? Huang Ziliu shook his head. "Your Majesty, I saw Han Fei appear on the Immortal Palace with my own eyes. I can't be wrong. That Han Fei was arrogant and said that he was the human king of this generation. He wanted to destroy Tai Ching, kill Wuji, and unify the 36 Immortal Palaces." Huang Ziliu felt his legs turn to jelly when Luochen snorted. He immediately knelt on the ground. This was the first time he felt the aura of an emperor. Bei Luochen said indifferently, "How dare an ignorant child call himself the human king? You really overestimate yourself." Bei Luochen tossed a jade slip to Huang Ziliu. "This is the power of my blade. It can help you suppress the avalon of 5 elements for a period of time. A pioneer sea realm expert will not attack the weak. Don't panic, I will arrange for someone to take care of it." Huang Ziliu's heart trembled and his mind was filled with joy. This meant that he had obtained the emperor's approval and could rightfully control the immortal palace. He could freely control the power of the immortal palace? "Thank you, your majesty." Bei Luochen ignored Huang Ziliu and scanned the area. Indeed, he did not feel any immortal spiritual energy or killing intent. At this moment, he had a bad feeling. Wasn't Han Fei a little too strong? It was not impossible for him to kill Li Chaofeng, but he had only become a human king a few decades ago. How could he kill Li Chaofeng and suppress Gongzhan? After all, this was Gongzhan's immortal palace. Gongzhan had lost in his own territory. Was Gongzhan too weak, or was Han Fei too strong? Without Wang Yijian's help, Han Fei alone could kill 2 human kings in such a short period of time. Han Fei's strength had to be reevaluated. Unfortunately, Bei Luochen lost track of Han Fei and Wang Yijian again. At this moment, Bei Luochen recalled Han Fei's threat through Wang Yijian and could not help but frown. Han Fei was a scourge after all. He had wanted to force Han Fei to reveal himself, but he had driven him crazy first. With a thought, Bei Luochen's shadow expanded infinitely until it almost covered half of the avalon of 5 elements. Many people in the avalon of 5 elements fell to their knees when they saw this. They felt that this was a miracle. However, Bei Luochen said, "I am the founding emperor of the Wuji heavens. Han Fei of the human race harbors evil intentions and has fallen to the demonic path. He intends to stir up internal strife among the human race. I will lead the 36 mysterious sky kings to attack and capture this demon. A battle between the strong does not endanger the lives of the people. Do not panic. After I kill this demon, the avalon of 5 elements will be restored." He's actually an emperor, the legendary heaven-creating divine warrior? Since he's an emperor, he must be helpless. Han Fei overestimated himself and called himself the human king. It turns out that he has fallen to the demonic path. Han Fei is obviously a big demon. He massacred the avalon of 5 elements for no reason. How ridiculous! Countless people discussed this. Of course, there were also some who had doubts. Han Fei said that the Great Purity Wuji was bad, and the Great Purity Wuji said that Han Fei had fallen to the demonic path. Who could say which side was bad? Did the stronger side have the final say? However, in the midst of the crowd's anger, these people kept their thoughts to themselves, even if they had other thoughts. Since neither side could threaten the lives of ordinary people, it was at least a blessing in disguise. However, Bei Luochen turned around and split into 3, heading straight for the Berserk Corpse, Blood Fiend, and Spirit Refinement immortal palaces. Since he could not catch Han Fei and Wang Yijian, he could not allow them to threaten the safety of the Wuji heavens. Half a month later, Han Fei appeared in Marshall the Arch City and warned the outer domain immortal palaces that anyone who blindly followed the Great Purity Wuji and tried to harm the Yin-Yang heaven would be killed without mercy. At the same time, Han Fei dumped the treasures he had obtained from the Medicine King heaven, the avalon of 5 elements, and the other immortal kings in Marshall the Arch City. Apart from the true sea-quelling bizarre treasures and supreme-grade weapons, everything that was useless to the construction of the Source World was dumped. If it wasn't for dumping, he wouldn't have known, but the moment it happened, he was shocked. The top-grade resources that Han Fei had plundered were sold for more than 500 million supreme-grade spirit stones. As for the rest, a large portion of them did not meet the standard and were not accepted at all. Han Fei planned to give them all away after he saved the Yin-Yang heaven. Han Fei only stayed in Marshall the Arch City for a day before disappearing again. In an instant, The immortal kings of the 13 outer domains were like ants on a hot pan. Some even started to visit. Han Fei was crazy. He would kill anyone who dared to get close to the great purity Wuji. Most importantly, they were just average immortal kings. If Han Fei really attacked, what could they do? Therefore, many immortal palaces immediately expressed that they would not participate in this matter. They could not stand it. No matter how bad the Wuji heavens was, it was still one of the leaders of the 36 mysterious heavens of the human race. It was impossible for them to forcibly attack the immortal palaces. But Han Fei was not so sure. When he went crazy, he would kill 1 or 2 immortal kings for them to see. Would they be afraid? But because of this, Han Fei's name gradually began to spread among the 36 mysterious heavens. The captain of the Avengers, Han Fei, became Demon Han. Chapter 1940. In the Mist Sea, in a certain space node, Han Fei was standing in his origin world. Baluochen's power made him realize that he wasn't strong enough yet, so he needed to continue to strengthen his origin world first. Before that, a string of data appeared in Han Fei's eyes. Owner Han Fei, level greater than 93. Sea expansion. Sea family tree 980006. Chaotic energy 17156. Spiritual power 665568. Perception range greater than 700,000 kilometers. Strength greater than 183,209 waves. First spiritual heritage unknown. Second spiritual heritage unknown. First spiritual beast, twin yin-yang spirit swallowing fish, level 87. Second spiritual beast, emperor sparrow, level 89. Main art, void descent, level 7 of void fishing, king level, divine quality. Huh? Suddenly, Han Fei was stunned. He was in the sea expansion realm, but he was level 90 before, and now he suddenly became level 93. He hadn't checked his status for a long time, and this time, he realized something. Yes, the cultivation level didn't disappear, but the calculation method of the sea expansion realm had changed. In the sea expansion realm, the level would be calculated according to the size of the origin sea. But on second thought, Han Fei felt that something was wrong, because he remembered that the water fairy told him that she almost passed the tribulation and became an emperor. However, how big was the water fairy's origin sea? If it was 10,000 kilometers per level, wouldn't it take 100,000 kilometers for her to pass the tribulation? Therefore, it was possible that most sea expansion realm experts didn't know the real cultivation method of the sea expansion realm. They just thought that they could open the sky and become emperor, so they tried, but it turned out that they couldn't. In places like the yin-yang heaven and the waterwood heaven, there were few talents, and they didn't even have enough history to know this secret. Therefore, the cultivation of the sea expansion realm was like a blind man touching an elephant. In addition, after he opened the sea, his origin sea had exceeded 10,000 kilometers. But why didn't it show level 91? Did it mean that the calculation of the sea expansion realm not only depended on the size of the origin sea, but also the amount of chaotic energy? Han Fei's eyes glittered. So, in fact, if he was willing to use all the resources he got to expand the source world, he could actually level up quickly. However, Han Fei glanced at his origin world and found that it was slightly foggy, which made him realize that it was probably because he hadn't set up a layout in the 20,000 kilometers that he had explored, so his origin sea wasn't solid enough, and thus foggy. Thinking of this reason, Han Fei didn't intend to expand the origin sea immediately. After all, as long as he had energy and ultra-quality spiritual stones, he could expand his origin sea. After all, Forge the Universe had been fused with his origin sea. In addition to the changes in levels, Han Fei suddenly understood the way to quickly advance to the Pioneer Sea realm. Other than that, although the amount of primal chaos chi had increased, his origin sea had also grown bigger. He really wanted to spend 10,000 strands of primal chaos chi to upgrade the chain of time in his origin sea. However, Han Fei couldn't help but feel worried if he only had 7,000 strands of chaotic energy left to support the source world for 30,000 kilometers. In the future, when he had more primal chaos chi, he would consider upgrading the chain of time. The improvement of his soul power was within his expectation. After all, he had killed more than one king and obtained a lot of spiritual pills and medicines. The improvement of his strength was due to the minor success of the void refining art, which made him have a big breakthrough. To Han Fei's surprise, the Pioneer Sea realm didn't seem to have an upper limit of strength. Even when he was at the beginning of level 90, he could cultivate to the strength of 160,000 waves. It seemed that this level could only be used to measure one's level. But he didn't care. His spiritual heritage was still unknown, and Han Fei was used to it. As for the Emperor Sparrow breaking through to the half-king level, that was a long time ago. Little Black and Little White weren't slow either. Even the nine-tailed mantis shrimp and the others had all reached a higher level after so many years of training. Even the nine-tailed mantis shrimp had surpassed Little Black and Little White and reached level 88. Little Gold, Little Fatty, and Simp had also reached level 87, 86, and 86 respectively. In the end, they were all legendary creatures, the latecomers catching up. With enough experience, they could still catch up. It was just that the time given to them was too short. Otherwise, if Han Fei had another 10 years, he was confident that they could all reach the half-king level. After reviewing his information, Han Fei thought of something. In this source world, the ground in some places was collapsing, and the ground in some places was bulging. There were meteorites, and as for the mountain passes, they were condensed into volcanic areas. There were strange peaks covered with cold crystals and turned into snow-capped mountains. There were rivers emerging on the earth, and there were desolate swamps on the surface. Seawater was emerging, and underground springs were flowing. Plants were growing, and gardens were being developed, one after another. Long dragons formed by supreme-grade spirit stones were scattered among the mountains, rivers, and lands. Han Fei seemed to be immersed in the pleasure of creating a world, and didn't realize that the mist in his source world was quickly dissipating. Among the crew members of the Avenger who were cultivating in Han Fei's source sea, the Insect King and Zi Luo were the first to notice that something was wrong. The Insect King said, "Have you noticed that the Human King's source sea seems to be more agile than before?" Zi Luo exclaimed, "Huh, do you have this feeling too?" "Me too, but we don't seem to have changed much here. I feel an inexplicable vitality, which seems to be connected to this place where we are." Luo Xiaobai frowned slightly and tried to detect it with her perception, but she found nothing. The Void Vine also said, "I didn't find anything wrong. The Human King doesn't allow us to leave this delimited island. Otherwise, I could have explored it." Zhang Xuanyu said angrily, "What? Is Han Fei's source sea for you to explore?" The Void Vine quickly chuckled. "Of course not. How dare I explore Master Human King's source sea?" Zhang Xuanyu pushed Luren Kuang and said, "Do you feel anything wrong?" Luren Kuang shrugged. "No. Who cares if he has it or not? We could just ask him later." Hearing this, Zhang Xuanyu immediately clapped his hands with Luren Kuang in agreement. "That's true. We're brothers. Why don't we just ask?" They didn't even bother to think about it. Even Luo Xiaobai felt relieved when she heard this. Since the Insect King and Zi Luo said there were changes, this change was probably good. Anyway, Han Fei would tell them. Time passed. Han Fei was immersed in creating the world for more than 10 days before he suddenly woke up. However, when Han Fei woke up and looked down at the mountains and rivers here, he felt that this world seemed to be a bit familiar. But he didn't care. After Han Fei came back to his senses, the first thing he found was that the mist had disappeared. If it weren't for the clear sky and the bright sun, Han Fei would have felt that this place was really a fairyland. In addition to the beauty of the fairyland, Han Fei could also feel that his source world was slowly generating power, and there seemed to be an invisible Taoist aura being born. In addition, Han Fei had an epiphany and felt that his incomparably powerful physique was relaxed. It was not that his physique was not strong, but that it used to be tight, but now it was much more relaxed. It was like a river that was filled with water, but now it was a river that was filled with water. The comfort had increased a lot, but it still felt a little tight. Han Fei seemed to understand that with his current strength, level, 93 might not be enough, so he felt a little tight. But when Han Fei wanted to develop the Source Sea with resources again, he was dumbfounded to find that. He had a huge amount of resources, except for the one that fed the demon purification pot, and there were less than 100 million ultra-quality spiritual stones left. Han Fei couldn't help but curse. I knew it. I'll always run out of ultra-quality spiritual stones. It seems that the resources I got are still not enough. Han Fei smiled slightly, but it didn't matter. Now he had a lot of enemies, and he could rob a lot of resources. He couldn't help but wonder if the heaven-opening state powerhouses who had been born had understood this truth long ago, so they had long gone to develop the Source Sea in this way. Unfortunately, no one would tell him that he had to walk this path by himself. After sorting out his own situation, Han Fei took out a fish skin map, on which thousands of routes were marked with the location of the martial Emperor City as the center, as well as the residences of the major immortal palaces, the 100 Demons clan, the Seabed Human clan, and the Mermaid Royal clan. This was naturally the route map that Han Fei bought in the martial Emperor City, which had been slowly explored by countless ancestors generation after generation. Han Fei took out the nautical panorama, and in the blink of an eye, the nautical panorama pointed to an area between the 100 Flowers Palace and the 10,000 Poison Heaven. Outside the 100 Flowers Palace, 3 large ships engraved with flame symbols were wandering. On the ship, Shui Ran, the captain of the Red Fire Pirates, was shouting, "Remember to be fast, accurate, and ruthless on this trip to the 100 Flowers Palace. I will contain Hua Qianyue, and you must seize this cargo ship as soon as possible." "Yes, Captain." Amidst the shouting, Shui Ran's lips curled up in satisfaction. It wasn't easy to do business now, and the outer regions were becoming more and more turbulent. It shouldn't be difficult for him to make a fortune while the Avalon of 5 elements was in chaos. Just as Shui Ran was thinking about how smart he was, he suddenly heard a voice. "Shui Ran, long time no see." Like a bolt from the blue. Shui Ran didn't dare to turn his head. In an instant, he felt cold sweat all over his body. Hearing the voice, he knew who it was. At this moment, all the venerables on the 3 ships of the Red Fire Pirates were all silent. They were all scared. Shui Ran turned his head with difficulty and saw that Han Fei was standing on the mast of his fire god, smiling at him. "Gulp," Shui Ran said with difficulty. "Han Fei." Han Fei smiled. "I'll give you a choice. I'll give you a choice. Submit to me or die." Chapter 1941. How could Shui Ran expect to meet Han Fei here? The rise of the Avengers was too fast. After fighting with Han Fei once, Shui Ran didn't want to meet Han Fei again. Shui Ran had never expected that he would meet Han Fei. After massacring Gong Zhan and Li Chaofeng, this guy had caused civil strife in the human race. Shouldn't he be thinking about how to compete with the Tai Ching Wuji? Why was he here? Of course, Shui Ran didn't believe it was an accident. There were countless routes in the vast sea. How could he meet Han Fei so coincidentally? Since it wasn't an accident, it meant that Han Fei was here for him. Hearing Han Fei's question of surrender or die, Shui Ran's heart sank. Did this guy want to subdue him? Shui Ran knew that he was no match for Han Fei. The fact that this guy could kill Gong Zhan in the Avalon of 5 elements was enough to prove that Han Fei was no longer someone he could deal with. Shui Ran said, "Brother Han, we don't get to know each other without a fight. If you have any orders, just tell me." Shui Ran was terrified. He had no choice but to be terrified. If he dared to be tough with Han Fei, he would be dead. However, Han Fei paid no attention to Shui Ran, and he continued, "I'll give you one more chance. Submit or die." Shui Ran's eyelids twitched. After staring at Han Fei for a while, he finally chose to lower his noble head. The Red Fire Pirates choose to surrender. Han Fei smiled and said, "Remember your choice. If you betray me, I'll kill you without mercy. Since I can find you once, I can find you 10 times. Don't think that I can't find you if you hide. You could try." Shui Ran smiled bitterly. He couldn't refute this. After all, his operation was confidential. Only Shui Ran knew the target before he took action. He wouldn't reveal it to anyone else. Shui Ran had no choice but to be found under such circumstances. He thought to himself, Han Fei isn't weak, so I'll just surrender. Han Fei smiled. In the future, don't fight for resources like the Hundred Flowers Palace. Wait for me outside Dreamweaver. With that said, Han Fei threw a jade slip to Shui Ran, which was the location he marked. When Shui Ran heard this, he was stunned. Did this mean that Han Fei was going to attack Dreamweaving Sky? That wasn't an immortal palace on the level of the Avalon of 5 elements. It was the extremely strange Dreamweaver Sky, one of the immortal palaces in the inner region. How could anyone from the inner territory compare to this? Even though Yu Ming of Dreamweaver Sky had been killed by Han Fei, there were still more than 2 kings of Dreamweaver Sky. Shui Ran's heart sank, and he couldn't help but say, Brother Han, wouldn't it be too risky for my Crimson Flame pirates to go alone? Don't worry, you won't be the only one going. Hearing this, Shui Ran was immediately relieved. It seemed that the Red Fire pirates would not be the only one who would suffer. He just didn't know which other families were going to suffer. Han Fei was going to take down Dreamweaver. He needed to pick a troublemaker from both the outer and inner realms. Since you all want to ambush me, suppress me, wish to go against my Yin-Yang Sky, then I'll give it to you. In that case, I will first destroy your palace, rob you of your resources, and destroy your sect. Although Han Fei had already made up his mind, he was not stupid. The Avalon of 5 elements still paled in comparison to the Dreamweaver Avalon. He could barge into the 5 elements immortal palace and kill Gongzhan. However, that didn't mean that he could force his way into the Dreamweaver immortal palace and kill Sha Jiming. Gongzhan didn't have a peerless illusion technique like Sha Jiming, nor did he have the special ability to enter people's dreams. Even if Han Fei did it himself, he had to be very careful. However, Han Fei had to go this time. Since the outer area had been intimidated, the inner area couldn't be allowed to attack the Sword God's 4 palaces. Therefore, Wang Yijin's identity was about to reappear. Of course, before that, Han Fei had a few other things to do. Myriad Poison Heaven, Spider King City, Great Desolate Swamp. Han Fei was already familiar with this place. Not long after Han Fei stood on a mountain peak, he saw Huang Jie slowly walking towards the cliff Han Fei was standing on with a cane. Huang Jie said as he walked, I didn't expect you to grow so fast. You killed 2 kings in a row. Even I am curious about what realm your strength has reached. Han Fei smiled faintly. I'm still a long way from the peak of the Sea Expansion realm. Huh, Huang Jie almost blew his beard. How long has it been since you became a king? You're already thinking about the peak of the Sea Expansion realm? To be honest, few people in the entire chaotic vast sea knew what the peak of the Sea Expansion realm was like. Huang Jie didn't ask anymore. Han Fei had killed 2 kings in a row, which was enough to prove his strength. According to the strength of the 2 kings who had died, Han Fei's ranking in the Sea Expansion realm was at least within the top 30. Huang Jie suspected that he might even be within the top 20. After all, the Yin-Yang Sky had disappeared for 80,000 years. It wasn't easy for a peerless heavenly talent to appear, so it was reasonable for this heavenly talent to be a little beyond ordinary people's expectations. Otherwise, how could Han Fei dare to compete with the Grand Pure Wuji? Huang Jie said, Okay, you're here to return my Imperial Purple Smoke Furnace, right? Han Fei tossed it casually and then said, The effect of this furnace doesn't seem to be as strong as it was at the beginning. Huang Jie didn't care. That's because the power of the pills in the furnace has been refined countless times. Your body has absorbed most of it, so you feel that its effect is not as strong. However, for alchemy, this furnace is still a treasure. Han Fei didn't know how to refine pills, so he just threw the furnace over and said, I'll return it to you. Huang Jie stepped forward and touched the Imperial Purple Smoke Furnace with his hand. He grinned and said with mixed feelings, Little Z, I didn't expect that after so many years, you still return to my hands. How could that old witch Chiu know how to use it? From now on, let me accompany you to create another legend. Han Fei was speechless when he saw Huang Jie's gentle care for the Imperial Purple Smoke Furnace. If he didn't know better, he would think that he was seeing his wife. Han Fei wasn't in a hurry. After Huang Jie finished admiring it, he said, Senior, is the 9 poison treasure, Silkworm, ready? Huang Jie snickered. Of course, this king's words naturally count. Huang Jie waved his hand and put away the imperial purple smoke furnace. With a flip of his hand, a delicate and small golden cage appeared in his hand. In the cage, there was a chubby, red silkworm baby. Information appeared in Han Fei's eyes. Name: 9 poison treasure, silkworm, introduction, an insect that is immune to all poisons. It can swallow all poisons in the world. It grows up by eating poisons and changes because of poisons. The 9 poison treasure silkworm doesn't have a real body. Everything it sees is a soul. This insect can live in the soul of a living creature and guard the host's soul. It must be fed with spiritual energy, poisons, chaotic energy, etc. Once the poisons it feeds exceed the tolerance of the 9 poison treasure silkworm, it will stop detoxifying and fall into a short sleep to consume the poisons in its body. Level 79, quality, legendary, upgradable. Effect, inettable, collectible, 9 poison treasure pouch, absorbable. Remark, the 9 poison treasure silkworm is not invincible. Once the poisons are too strong, the 9 poison treasure silkworm may fall into a deep sleep. When Han Fei saw the information of the 9 poison treasure silkworm, he couldn't help but frown. Although the 9 poison treasure silkworm could only swallow and decompose a limited amount of poisons, it wouldn't die. This was a little different from the characteristics of the heaven spirit detoxifying insect, but the two were probably equally strong. The heaven spirit detoxifying insect died easily, but it ate a lot of poisons. And this thing might not eat enough poisons, but it wouldn't die easily. The most important thing was that the 9 poison treasure silkworm could protect the host's soul, which was the most important thing. Han Fei couldn't help asking, "How do I recognize it as its master?" Huang Jie said, "Give it a drop of essence blood and a wisp of soul." Han Fei nodded slightly. Because everything was within his sight, he wasn't afraid that Huang Jie had any bad intentions. When a drop of essence blood and a wisp of soul entered the cage, the 9 poison treasure silkworm sucked the essence blood and soul into its body like bubbles. Then, before the cage was opened, the 9 poison treasure silkworm directly turned into a blue mist, drilled out of the cage, and drilled between Han Fei's eyebrows. Han Fei didn't stop it. He didn't even feel anything. But when he was meditating, if he looked carefully, he would see a chubby little insect hiding in the depths of his soul. Han Fei couldn't help but be surprised. "That's it," Huang Jie nodded. "That's it. The 9 poison treasure silkworm is precious because it's hard to find in the world. This one has already been raised by me and fed all kinds of strange poisons. It's only one step away from a breakthrough. In the future, you only need to feed it a little, and it will be of great help to you. Now, even in the entire chaotic ocean, I'm afraid there are few poisons that can seriously injure you." Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "Senior, didn't you say you were going to tell me about soul poisons?" Huang Jie smiled. "I've already prepared it for you." With that, Huang Jie handed out a jade slip and said, "You'll understand after you take a look." Han Fei picked up the jade slip, scanned it with his perception, and smiled. "In that case, I'll take it." Han Fei was about to leave when he heard Huang Jie say, "I'm afraid it's difficult to kill a heaven-opening state expert with poison. At most, I can keep him in check for a moment. It's a pity that I haven't entered the heaven-opening state. Otherwise, I could try to kill a heaven-opening state expert with poison." Han Fei's heart did a flip. After seeing Bei Luochen's means, Han Fei felt that it was already very good to be able to keep him in check for a moment. So Han Fei smiled and said, "Got it.